Hey fellas, it's Goofy Harry. Today we are gonna see, what if Harry Potter was unpaid hitman? Please like, share and drop so many comments. Also join Patreon for something very steamy and op. Link in the description. Also please go and support author for his wonderful creation. Suna was sleeping, until he got his usual wake-up torture from Reborn, of course. Getting out of bed and rubbing the new bump on his head, he eyed the green mallet in the hitman's hand. I think he's using bigger and bigger ones every day, Suna thought. Dress up, Dame Suna, we're expecting company. Reborn commanded. Wah, it's Sunday morning. Hell, it's 7 o'clock. Why'd you wake me so early? You got a letter from the 9th. I'll read it when the others get here. He baby said as he left the room before Suna can say anything. A letter from the 9th. This can't be good. It must be one of those direct orders again. But what could have happened so soon? We just came back from Italy 2 weeks ago. Suna wondered as he got dressed. Yes, Suna and his familia, including Kyoko, Haru and the young Shoichi, have went to Italy for over a month during their summer vacation. Reason: they had to inform the Vongola about what they've seen and did in the future. About the Milfior, Byakuran and the 6 funeral wraiths. As evidence for their adventure, they had the IR box weapons and more importantly their Vongola boxes. Of course, the Vongola boxes were sewn to only a select few, such as the 9th Ordino, and kept secret from Verde. Helping him create usable boxes was one thing. Letting him copy their unique weapons was another. It had been over 2 months since they had returned from the future after defeating Byakuran. Eri told them that since there are an infinite number of parallel futures, telling the upper echelon of the Vongola what they know would at most create another possible future, not change the others. Also, since that future was the ONLY one in which the Vongola boxes existed, they could take them back with them. The boxes were made for them from the past to use after all, since the Vongola rings were required to open them. But not all of them had returned to Japan yet. Bianchi, Fuda and Lambo decided stay in Italy for a few more weeks, taking care of family business and the like. Ipan on the other hand had gone to China to seeking her master for training. Shoichi had been convinced by Verde to stay in Italy for a while as his apprentice. The Archibaleno was very intrigued by his potential. Anyway, back in the present, soon. I had just finished breakfast when the door rang. Good morning, 10th. Gokudera greeted Suna as usual. Yo Suna. Yamamoto grinned. Etreme good morning Sawada. Ryohei yelled as usual. Morning. Suna replied with a smile. Come on in, Reborn said as he landed on Suna's head. So what did you want to talk to us about, Suna? Yamamoto asked. That us. Well, talk about it when the others get here. Reborn cut him off and a few seconds later the door rang again. Morning boss. Chrome greeted him and kissed him on the cheek as usual. Morning, Chrome, Suna replied with a blush. What do you want, herbivore? Hibari asked in his usual tone. Come in and you'll find out. Reborn told him with a grin. Everyone in Namimori knew Hibari hated grouping. As if he was asked to kill himself, Hibari groaned, but eventually came in. Well, the reason I called you here today is simple. A letter from the 9th has arrived. Reborn started and smiled when they all stiffened. The last letter from the old man ordered them to fight the Varia. An old friend of the 9th requested help from him in protecting his school. The baby continued. A few moments of silence. Then, protect his school? You want us to protect a mafia school? Suna asked him, thinking he heard wrong. Of course not. There's no such thing as a mafia-only school. Reborn told him. Thank God. The school you'll be protecting is a magic school. It's called Hogwarts, by the way. Silence. Silence. Still silence. Then, ehhhhhhhh. The whole room sounded. Reborn, there's no such thing as magic. I agree with the 10th. Are you pulling our leg? Kid, ridiculous. After all you've seen, you can deny the existence of magic. Reborn smirked. Hearing those words, they thought of everything they've seen in the past months. The ring flames, the box weapons, the transforming funeral wraiths and the Triniset that could control the world. Compared to that, magic sounded quite normal. Okay, presuming we accept the existence of magic. Suna mumbled. Yeah, From what do we protect the school from? Dragons. Yamamoto tried to joke. Maybe that too, but that's not the main issue. Wah, real dragons. Seeing the look in Reborn eyes, they fell silent. The home tutor was serious. Then what are we supposed to protect it from? Hibari intervened. Some dark wizards that may try to cause trouble. You see, this year they will be holding a tournament with 2 other schools as guests, so someone might sneak in. I see. But how could we possibly go into a magic school and not draw the culprits' attention? Suna asked rhetorically. You'll pass out as the 3rd guest school. Reborn grinned. Okay, let me get this straight. You want us to act as participants in a magic tournament held at a magic school? Suna asked. Exactly. The hitman replied. Small problem. Oh, we can't use magic, of course not. So you see my point. You need to learn how to use magic. You'll start right away. That's right, we'll. What? In fact, you may learn the fastest. Really? Suna asked surprised. In fact, you may already know. Reborn grinned evilly and they all realized what he meant and all heads turned to Suna. No, no way. I'm not looking in the parallel worlds again. The boy said defensively. You're not, Reborn said mockingly. Then, he began as Leon morphed into a gun. Alright, geez. But not here. I need a large open space to do it. Suna gave in. I don't remember agreeing to come. Hibari said coldly. Even if you'll be allowed to slightly impose discipline. Reborn tempted him. I don't remember agreeing either. Mukuro said as his illusion body formed in front of them. Even if that might reduce your sentence to half. The hitman grinned. Depends. How will it be reduced? You would be moved to a less secure level of the prison. Enough for an escape. It depends on how much of your abilities you will be able to recover. Tempting. I'm going, Chrome suddenly said. Very well, Mukuro agreed. Punch a dragon to the extreme. We meet up at the edge of town in the forest area tonight. Reborn ended the meeting. At about midnight, he group was gathered in a clearing with Suna in the middle. Entering his hyper mode, Suna took the stance he usually used for 0-point breakthrough, custom. But instead of absorbing flames, he generated them, covering himself in a giant orb of soft sky flame. He was linking with his other selves in different dimensions. After about an hour, he absorbed the flame and collapsed. He was tired. Oot smiled at Chrome when she ran over to him. Aren't you cheerful? Reborn said with a smile. Unlike last time, I had more than a few worlds to look in, he said. The others looked relieved, understanding what he meant. He was alive in more than a few dimensions. We need to go to London for study materials. Suna told them. We already bought the books. Reborn told him. But the wands. A wandmaker will arrive tomorrow. Poor guy, Suna thought. Don't worry about him, he's getting VIP treatment, Reborn told Suna. Stop reading my mind already. How do you do that, anyway? It's creepy. Read all these books and you might find out. The hitman answered, dropping a large stack of books on his head. You mean you can use magic, Reborn-san? Gokudera inquired. Maybe. The baby answered, as he handed a stack of books to each other guardian present. You have about a week to read them all. That's how long it should take the wandmaker to finish up your wands. Then you'll start practicing. We leave on the 29th of October. Hold on. We can't expect us to suddenly to learn all this stuff. Suna yelled at him. That's right, Reborn-san. It even says, advanced, on them, Gokudera added. Impossible and useless. Hibari finished. Who said anything about learning everything? I told you to read them. Learn only that can be associated with your skills and flame element. For example, Gokudera should focus on curses and Ryohei on healing. So I should focus on spells that paralyze my opponents or the like. Yamamoto asked. Exactly. And since illusions are also a part of magic, Chrome should learn new types of illusions and charms. Hibari will learn transfiguration spells since there are some spells that have growth as effect. What about me? Suna asked. You tell us. What did you find out? Oh, well, there are some petrification and freezing spells. Good. Tomorrow evening, come at school so that the wandmaker can take your measurements. Okay, the group answered, getting ready to go home. Hold on, Chrome, since we'll be practicing at the school, I want you to transfer to Namimori. Reborn told the girl. But Ken and Chikusa, she began worried. They will be going to Italy in a few days. Mukuro said, appearing once again. Just a part of the deal I made with Iamatsu. To have some of the Vongola medics look over their abilities and make them less painful to use. I'm sure you can imagine how uncomfortable would be to suddenly grow claws and fur, he explained. And since the place you're staying at is kind of far from school, you'll be staying at Suna's until October. Reborn smirked. Whaaaaaaaaa. All the boys yelled, even Mukuro and Hibari. Suna and Chrome were blushing and Reborn was ginning. You two have any complaints? The home tutor asked evilly. Well, no. Suna mumbled and blushing even more when he met Chrome's gaze. Me neither, Chrome said. I do, Gokudera and Mukuro said in one voice. I wasn't talking to you. It's settled. You can move in right now. I had some people pack your stuff. Reborn said. Some people. Reborn, stop using me as your delivery boy. An annoying voice was heard. Oh, you're done, Skull. Quote, you have some nerve to make me do this on my day off, Reborn. Lol Milch said with her eye twitching. Well, I couldn't have Skull handle girls' stuff, right? I'm more than convinced there were other options, she said, still annoyed. At any rate, it's late, so let's head home. Reborn said, pulling out a gun. Wait a sec, why? Suna began, but he was hit in the head by the dying Will bullet. Whhhhhoo. Take the books and the luggage. Home as I were to die, Suna said, running off in his underwear with the items he named. Hey, and I didn't even have to tell him what to do. Reborn said out loud. Guess he wanted to carry those stuff himself anyway. He added, making Chrome blush again, and that didn't went unnoticed. As Reborn and Chrome got to the Sawada residence, they saw that one of the gate pillars was kind of cracked. It couldn't be that the boss crashed into it, could it? Chrome asked Reborn, worried. Bullseye. The hitman thought. But from the looks of it he did it more than once. Guess he was too embarrassed. Reborn grinned. And as usual, he was right. He was sitting at the table in the kitchen with a bag of ice in one hand and a glass of milk in the other. Hey, I see you arrived. I felt like having a night snack. Want to join me? Suna asked the two. Sure, have a seat, Chrome. I'll pour you some milk, Reborn said before the girl opened her mouth. It quiet here, Chrome said a few minutes later as they finished their drinks in silence. That's because the kids and Bianchi are in Italy. Suna sighed, relieved. I take it those two are pretty lively. Suna asked, referring to Ken and Chikusa. Yes, Chrome smiled. Well, since it's late, show her to her room, Suna. Reborn suggested. Sure, follow me. The boy said naively, leading Chrome upstairs. Here we are. Your room is just across from mine. If you need anything, just let me know, Suna told her, making her blush. Oh, okay. Also, if you need anything I'll be right here, Chrome said herself. Oh, okay. Suna blushed, realizing the way he told her. Good night. Then, he told her and was about to turn around when Chrome kissed him on his cheek and whispered, Good night, boss, before rushing in her room. Suna stood there for 2 minutes or so touching his cheek, before entering his room and going to bed. All this time, he only had one thing on his mind. Great idea, Reborn. During that night, he had some weird dreams. First he dreamt he had opened the door after Chrome after they said goodnight. Then, the dream changed. Masked people were burning some tents and then Green Skull a snake in his mouth appeared in the sky. When he saw the skull, he woke up to find out he had unconsciously entered his hyper mode and that the sky flame on his Vongola ring was lit. Hope you liked it. If you have any remarks or suggestions, you're more than welcome to review. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Wandmaker and the Plan. After washing up and getting dressed, Suna went to have breakfast downstairs. There, he was greeted by his mother. Reborn-kun just told me about it. She smiled. What did he tell you? Suna asked carefully. That you're going to Britain in October and Chr. Ohm-chan is staying with us to help you learn English. What else? Yeah, Suna, whatever could be thinking? Reborn asked ironically. Speaking of Chrome, where is she? She hasn't come down yet. Can you go call her? Sure. As he left the kitchen, he heard his mother's advice, remember to knock first. As knocked on her door and received no answer, he opened it slowly and saw that Chrome was still asleep. Getting near her bed, he saw that she was wearing white silky pajamas. Cute, he thought as he touched her shoulder. Chrome, Chrome, he nearly whispered. After a few seconds, she opened her free eye and asked confused as she was blushing, "Be boss." "Good morning, Chrome. Breakfast is ready," Suna told her with a warm smile. "Oh, okay, I just need to get dressed and," she trailed off. "Okay, the bathroom is at the end of the corridor," Suna told her, leaving the room. Less than 10 minutes later, they were eating together with Reborn and Nana. Seeing that the two children were avoiding each other, gaze, Nana couldn't help but comment, "You two look like such a cute couple." At that, the two almost shocked. "Mom," Suna yelled. Smiling, the mother left the room, leaving the two alone. For some reason Reborn wasn't there. In an awkward silence. "Sorry about that, she always jumps to conclusions," Suna said after a few minutes. It's okay," Chrome answered, thinking, "For some reason, it didn't bother me." Looking at them through his binoculars from outside, Reborn smirked, thinking, "I guess they need more outside influence." Later that day, after looking over some of the books they were given, the Guardians arrived at school to have their wand measurements taken, most of them still wondering what that meant. Weren't wands some kind of fancy sticks? They were greeted at the school entrance by Dino, an old man. "Yo, Suna, it's been a while. This is Mr. Ollivander, one of the best wandmakers out there." Dino made the introductions. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Sawada," Ollivander said in a surprisingly correct Japanese. "Please follow me. I have my tools stored in one of the classrooms." Inside, numerous small boxes with odd materials were lined up against the wall, each one with a number on them. There were about 200 of them. "Firstly, I'll take your measurements. Please hold out your main hand." They all held out their right hand and 6 length measuring items flew at them. Taking various measurements but focusing on the fingers they had the Vongola rings on. Why are you focusing on our rings?" Suna asked after a while. "Because those rings will be part of your wand. Or more precisely, your wands will be attachments to your rings." "How can you attach a stick to our rings?" Yamamoto asked, confused. But in your cases it won't have the shape of a usual wand. It will like the finger of a glove, being attached to your rings. Magic activation tools would be a more proper name for them. Anyway, now that we've finished with measuring, let's move on to the core and material. Please take turns touching each of those boxes. Afterwards, tell me from which two you got the best reaction." Confused, Suna went first. At the first few dozen boxes, he didn't feel a thing. Then, at number 70 he felt a pleasant warmth and his ring lit. Inside that box was a feather, half reddish-orange and half white. "Oh, that's a rare one. A hybrid of phoenix and frost lion. I obtained that one over 20 years ago," the wandmaker informed them. A similar reaction came from a box that contained, "Is that a dying wool bullet?" "Yep, I thought you guys would work well with that material," Reborn told them. "The others should try it right now as well." Sure enough, their rings lit. Hibari was next at choosing his core. His reaction came from what looked like diamond. A sting from a diamond hedgehog. As things went on, Ryohei got a grass kangaroo heart while Yamamoto got scales from a water imp and Gokudera got fire tiger fur. Chrome on the other hand got 2. A black scale from a basilisk and a white feather from a snow owl. "Hey, I could bet anything that the scales are for Mukuro," Gokudera said. "Make 2 separate tools, one for each core," Reborn advised Ollivander. "Very well, they will be ready in a week." The old man dismissed them. With a wave of his wand, all the small boxes flew and formed a stack. Then, at another wave, they disappeared along with Ollivander. "Head home and study," Reborn said as he landed on Suna's shoulder. As they walked home, Suna noticed Chrome, absent eyes, and realizing she was worried about having 2 activation tools, he gently put his hand on her shoulder and called out to her. "Chrome." "Why yes boss. Don't worry about it." "What do you mean? I use both flames and ice. Don't worry about having 2 wands." "Thanks boss. You can call me Suna, you know." He smiled. "Thanks Suna." she whispered, blushing, making the boy blush himself, and the Hitman grin. Maybe they don't need my help after all, Reborn thought out loud. For what? Suna asked, raising a brow. Oh, nothing, he answered, thinking, but they're still too naive. A possible temptation appeared when Suna's mother told them she will be away for a few days. Starting the current night, Reborn immediately told them he has business with Dino, so he'll be gone too. Mom gone plus Reborn gone equals me plus Chrome alone. This equation formed in Suna's mind. I'll leave after you finish studying, the Hitman added, having his enthusiasm. As they began reading, Reborn remembered something important. Chrome, can you call Mukuro for me? You needed me for something. Archibaldino. Follow me, was the answer, and they went downstairs. As the kitchen door closed behind them, he added, make sure Chrome doesn't hear us. How mysterious. Very well. Now what is this about? I want Chrome to get her organs back. I'm against any transplant, Mukuro answered sharply. I agree, Reborn said grimly. Then, the damaged organs weren't removed, were they? Sun flames, Mukuro whispered. But, my flames, the Hitman corrected him. Mukuro stared at him blankly for a while and then said coldly. If anything happens to her, it won't happen. You have my word. Reborn cut him off. Very well, but I hope this isn't an attempt to get rid of me. No, but regarding the reason, don't you think Suna and Chrome look good together? He grinned. I had a feeling you'll say that, Mukuro cited. Well, their personalities do match, but Vongola knows nothing of Chrome, past. He trusted her even after your attempt to posse's him. It won't be a problem. And in time she will tell him everything anyway. And we could always give them a few tips. Have it your way, for now at least, I approve. Mukuro gave up. Okay, I'll let you know when I'll start the healing. I could use your supervision. Not this week. I'm too tired, Mukuro added while disappearing. Now all I need to do is to have Colonel and Verde here next week, he said thoughtfully. And set up some hidden cameras around the house, of course, he grinned. Yes, he was going to enjoy this. As he walked out, he remembered his attempts to hook up Kyoko with Suna. Despite all his ideas, either Suna screwed up or Kyoko was too oblivious. Well, Kyoko is as innocent as Chrome, but the blonde way more naive. I mean, come on. She saw her brother beaten to a pulp by Lugeri, and electrified by the wires around the ring, and she still believed it was a sumo match. Chrome on the other hand was a lot less naive, probably due to her connection to Mukuro. Yes, she was very shy, but she was bold enough to kiss Suna at their first meeting. And most importantly, she wasn't a crush like Kyoko was. They were first friends, but there was one thing those two had in common, big brothers, blood related or not, that were sometimes overprotective. During that evening, Suna and Chrome finally found some spells suitable for them. Animal summoning spells for Chrome and freezing spells for Suna. Well, actually Chrome found the Serpensodia spell that summoned a snake, and Suna found the Glacio spell that shot a sharp icicle at a target. But it was a start. And after that Reborn told them to wrap it up for the day and watch TV or something. After that he took his suitcase and left to Dino's place. Well, it was quite true that he had some business there, but not the kind that it would take days. Actually, he finished in less than an hour. After that, he opened his suitcase and took out his surveillance monitors. There were at least one for each room in the house, with the exception of the bathrooms and the 2 bedrooms of the kids. Let the show begin, he grinned, looking at the living room monitor as Chrome and Suna headed for the TV. Just in case someone hasn't realized by now, I'm using the Suna x Chrome pairing in this fanfic. I'm open for suggestion for other pairings. Only boy-girl pairings. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Those two's time alone. They were alone. They were sitting together on the couch, watching a romance movie. Their hands were touching and the movie had reached a kissing scene. They were very close to one another. The same thing as on both their minds. Should I dare kiss him, her? Just as Suna decided to take a chance, ding, dong, ding, dong, the door rang. As Suna got up disappointed and headed for the hallway, Chrome whispered. He was leaning towards me, she blushed. At the door, pizza delivery, A guy with a cap announced, handing Suna 3 packages. Pizza? He asked, confused. I didn't order any. Sure you did. This is the Sawada residence, right? Yes, but, no buts. They've already been paid for. Good night. The guy said and walked away. That's odd. Maybe Reborn ordered them and forgot he had to leave. Suna said to himself, smiling and going inside with the pizza. Boss, who? Chrome began but saw the look on his face, the same he had earlier as they walked home. Who was that, Suna? She asked and noticed his smile. Pizza delivery. He answered, putting the packages on the coffee table in front of the couch. Pizza? Yeah, I didn't order myself. Probably Reborn did before he remembered he had to leave. Oh, Reborn-san. Yeah, Reborn, hold on. What's wrong, Suna? I just remembered something disturbing. Disturbing? Last year Reborn poisoned the pizza that was delivered to the volley team just to force me play, he said grimly, and Chrome froze. But he wouldn't do that to you, would he? She asked hesitantly. He's done worse. Anyway, let's just test it to see if it's poisoned. How? Gokudera gave me last year a special chemistry kit. It has some special paper that changes color depending on the type of poison, he told her. Seeing the confused look on Chrome's face, he added. His sister, Poison Scorpion Bianchi, has been staying here to be close to Reborn. Oh, Bianchi-san, she remembered. That explains everything, she added with an understanding look. Yeah, here it is, Suna said as he pulled out a box out of a drawer. Let's see now. He took the absorbing piece of paper and let it touch a few parts of one of the pizza. The result? It's sleeping powder, and a strong kind as well. One wouldn't wake up even if he were shot, Suna said grimly. So it was Reborn-san. No, he would use something painful. That's right. Who could it be from? Gokudera didn't like the idea of Chrome staying here, but he gave me this kit, so what would be the point? Yamamoto. Nah, Ryohei. He's too happy that I gave up on Kyoko. Mukuro couldn't have even if he wanted to. That leaves Hibari. Now that I think about it, he did make quite the reaction, Suna thought. Meanwhile at school, Chairman, can you give me some time off tomorrow? Tetsuya asked. Fine, it's summer anyway, Hibari answered before he took out his ringing phone. Baby, Hibari, can you destroy the XXXXX pizza delivery firm for me? Reborn asked in a grouchy voice. Sure, I needed a workout anyway, the Cloud Guardian answered as he got up. While you're at it, find out who had them deliver 3 pizzas to Suna, the hitman added before smashing the phone back on its hook. Whoever interferes in my plans pays, Reborn said while turning his attention to the monitor in front of him. Back at the Sawada residence, after carefully disposing of the poisoned pizza, both Suna and Chrome had completely lost their appetite, and since it was late and the movie they were watching had finished while they were busy with the pizza, they decided to head for their bedrooms. Remembering they kissed they almost shared, Chrome decided to try to compensate for it a little. Suna, she said as they reached their bedroom's doors. Yes, he answered, turning towards her. Good night, she said, kissing him on the cheek but also reaching his lips. After that she turned around blushing and had her hand on the doorknob when Suna replied. Good night, Chrome, he said, smiling warmly. Turning her head towards him, she returned the smile before entering her room. Being pretty pleased of the evening, Suna went to sleep. On Reborn's side, well, at least they had a good night kiss, the hitman said as he was setting the monitor on record and went to sleep himself. And there's always tomorrow. The next morning at Suna's house, Suna woke up at about 9 o'clock. It was summer and for the first time in years he didn't have remedial classes. Unlike the previous day, Chrome was the one to wake him. Suna, she called gently. Suna mumbled as he rolled towards the voice. Suddenly his stretched hand touched something soft. Opening his eyes he saw Chrome's bright red face and closed eye. Lowering his view, he saw his hand squishing her breast. Oh God, he yelled, backing away from the girl and blushed like crazy. I'm sorry, it's all right, she said, breathing hard and with her eye a little absent. Breakfast is ready, she added before running out of the room. Outside on the corridor, she leaned on Suna's door and thought, he made me feel so warm. Suna on the other hand was panicking, but only apparently, as he was actually thinking. Soft. On Reborn's side. Good accident, he said, giving the monitor a thumbs up. Hey, Reborn, Dino said as he entered the room. Bang, bang, bang. 3 bullets were shot around Dino's head, burning his hair slightly. Get me a cappuccino. Pronto, the hitman ordered. And change those wet pants, he added after a glance at Dino. After the blonde left trembling, Reborn turned back to the monitor and congratulated himself on being an early riser and placing a new camera in Suna's room. After Suna got dressed, he went downstairs only find out Chrome was missing. Since her shoes were still at the entrance and he just came from the bathroom, that leaves her room, he thought before asking himself, worried. She's not crying, is she? Running up to her room, he opened the door wide. Chrome was indeed there, but she wasn't crying. No, she was in the middle of changing her clothes. Fortunately or not, she still had her underwear on. They stared at each other for 10 seconds, period in which they went from blushing to having steam coming out of their ears. Sorry, Suna yelled, closing his eyes and turning around only to hit his head against the wall. After finding the door, he ran out without closing it and, from what Chrome heard, he fell down the stairs. Worried, she pulled her clothes on and ran after him and found why he slipped the hard way. For some reason, the area near the stairs was wet. But luckily for her, Suna cushioned her fall as he was a little slow at getting up. Gee, thanks, the girl said and got up quickly as she felt where Suna's hands were touching. No problem, he answered. Let's have breakfast. Sure. As they ate, Suna couldn't help but be amazed. It's delicious. I don't think I ever ate something so good. Oh, it's just omelet, she said with modesty. Yeah, but it tastes great. I'm sure you'll make a great wife someday. Blushing, she murmured thank you. Well, that went well, Reborn smiled, looking through his binoculars from the tree in the yard. After that, he headed back to Dino's. As the day went on, their studies in magic revealed that some spells didn't require a wand or their rings made good replacements. How did they reach that conclusion? Suna somehow petrified Chrome's skirt, leaving her in her panties when it shattered at the slightest movement. And that was Haru and Gokudera busted in. 10th. Where are you? Gokudera asked loudly. Suna saw. Haru began but froze when she saw Chrome. Did you find the boss? Gokudera asked as he appeared beside Haru. Well, she did find him, but... Wah, woman, why are you doing to the 10th looking like that? He yelled. Tsuna-san. What are you doing to Chrome-san? Haru yelled herself. Well, nobody can blame them for misunderstanding. Why? Because Chrome had slipped on the remains of her skirt and landed on Suna, who was panicking. It was an accident. Suna said, bright red. That's some accident you got over there, Yamamoto said as he appeared behind Gokudera. It really was an accident, Chrome said, on the brink of crying. Suna-san, explain yourself, Haru demanded. Sure, but first, let Chrome get dressed, he said, covering his eyes. Yamamoto took his example and turned around. Gokudera on the other hand was staring at Chrome with anger. Noticing this, Haru poked his eyes and called him a pervert. A few minutes later, the misunderstanding was cleared. Sorry I doubted you, Suna-san, Haru said. Yeah, sorry Suna. Silence, silence. Then Haru hit Gokudera on the head. What was that for, woman? Don't you think you should apologize to someone? I didn't doubt the 10th for a second. She meant Chrome, Yamamoto enlightened him. Why should I apologize to her? Gokudera asked, annoyed, but then he felt a chill. Turning towards Suna, he noticed his glare. He had only received that kind of glare twice in his life. Both times he was beaten or poisoned to near death. I apologize. I'm sorry I doubted you, he said with a deep bow to Chrome, much to the girl's surprise. She obviously didn't see the look in Suna's eyes. Anyway, why are you guys here? Suna asked normally, like nothing had happened. Well, I just heard Chrome-san was staying here, so I dropped by to say hello, Haru said. I met up with Gokudera by the park and he told me you two are home all by yourselves. So I brought a snack, Yamamoto said as he revealed the sushi in his bag. Here just by yourselves, Haru said, suspicious. What have you been doing all by yourselves? Nothing, Suna said and added a more quieter, yet, fortunately or not, Gokudera was the only one who heard, and he was still too spooked to react. More like, how did you know, Gokudera-kun? Suna asked. Oh, well, Cavallone told me yesterday. He told me Reborn-san was staying at his place and that the 10th's mother was away. Don't worry, Suna-san. Haru will stay here until your mother comes back, the girl announced. Okay, now I'm worried, Suna and Gokudera thought. Then I'll stay here too, Gokudera announced. You don't mind if I stay here too, do you, Suna? Yamamoto asked. And no, Suna answered half-heartedly. He didn't mind Yamamoto, but the others were another story. At that time, Reborn. What did I do? Scratch that. Forgive me, Dino yelled as he was running from Reborn, who had machine guns in both hands. It seems I didn't teach you enough in the art of discretion, the hitman said. During that evening at Suna's 10th, the pizza we ordered has arrived, Gokudera announced, putting the stack on the kitchen table. Great, nobody touch it, Suna said while Chrome went in the living room. Why, yesterday we received some pizza with a sleeping drug in it. No way, Yamamoto said, surprised. Yeah, good thing I had that poison detection kit Gokudera-kun gave me. Kit? Oh, that one, I forgot about that. I mean, I'm glad you had it, Gokudera said quickly. Maybe it was from Reborn-san, he added grimly. Nah, he's not that gentle. If it were from him, it wouldn't be something so painless, Suna said. Here it is, Suna, Chrome said as she put the kit on the table. How dare you call the 10th by his first name? The Storm Guardian erupted. I told her to, Suna intervened. If I recall correctly, I told you the same over a dozen times, but to no avail. As your right-hand man, okay, have it your way. Now let's see if this is safe to eat. Tease. Una cut him off and began testing the pizza. The result was, well, it's not a sleeping drug this time, Suna said, blushing. And it isn't something painful either, Gokudera said, angry. But what? Chrome said, taking the color poison correspondence list from their hands. WHO could have something like this, she yelled after seeing the result of the test. Well, the only person I know to tease into this things, Suna trailed off, is Shamal, Gokudera finished. What is it? Chrome asked as she and Yamamoto looked at the list over Haru's shoulder. Wah, Chrome reacted. Oh boy, that sure seems like the doctor. Hello, Hibari. Everyone turned towards Suna, who was talking on the phone. I need you to destroy the YYYYY pizza delivery firm. And find out who had them put an aphrodisiac in my pizza, he said, and then closed his mobile phone. And so, within a mere period of 24 hours, 2 pizza delivery firms fell at the hands of Hibari. Unfortunately, they were all too badly beaten to tell him who hired them. Next morning, Reborn came home with Hibari. Why do you two have blood on your clothes? Yamamoto asked carefully. They didn't talk, Hibari replied. What about you, Reborn-kun? Haru asked, horrified. Dino talked too much, the hitman replied. For those disappointed by the lack of development between Chrome and Suna, this is T-rated. I intend to make a Chrome plus Suna fanfic after I finish this one. As always, I hope you liked the chapter and please review. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. The Magic Activation Tools. It was finally the day Ollivander brought them their wands. Since they were all restless, they met up at Suna's house and began discussing the spells they were compatible with. Ryohei had found several healing spells, from those that heal colds to the kind that grow limbs back. Gokudera, well, good thing he had decided, for reasons unknown, to study in a rocky area of the mountain. Because the fire he unconsciously made would have burned down half of town. Yamamoto somehow was able to repel anything that came at him too fast. Also, he managed to put his father to sleep for 2 days. And Hibari, well, either Hibbert had 20 twins or he was multiplied by the Cloud Guardian. Needless to say, they wanted to fix this mess as soon as possible. But for that they needed the wands, and Ollivander was late. Gokudera yelled, resonating in the empty school. Be quiet, herbivore, Hibari snapped at him, annoyed himself. Please forgive the delay, it's rather hard to operate on the other side of the world. Ollivander said as he came inside the room with a heavily wounded Dino. Good point. Reborn admitted, lowering his gun. He had had a bad week with his matchmaking attempts. Here is the merchandise you ordered, the wandmaker said as he put 7 small packages on a desk. As they opened the boxes that had their names on them, 7 gold and silver finger-shaped objects were revealed. The golden and silver parts were combined in a spiral, except the upper part where it formed the Vongola emblem. In a word, they were beautiful. Mine has the Vongola mark as well, Mukuro complained, appearing beside Chrome. Who are you? Ollivander asked cautiously. The owner of this tool, he answered as he picked up his magic item. Well, it fits my mist hell ring at least, he added as he tried it on. Since when do you have a hell ring? Suna asked, unpleasantly surprised. Genkashi's demon form was a very unpleasant memory. Since I gave it to him 2 days ago, Reborn answered. But Chrome has to hold it for him since he doesn't have a body. Is he a ghost? Ollivander inquired. No, but close, Mukuro answered. Trust me, you don't want the details, he added evilly. Oh okay, well then, I'm done here. We may meet again at Hogwarts. Farewell, the wandmaker said and disappeared with a loud sound like the last time. We meet up at the edge of town in that district with abandoned warehouses in 1 hour. Bring your spell books, Reborn ordered before he jumped out the window. Are you coming, Dino-san? Suna asked. No, I'll use this chance to leave the country, the Cavallone boss said as he ran out the door. Just what did the kid do to him? Yamamoto wondered out loud. He's alive, ain't he? Suna said coldly, making Hibari smile and Mukuro wonder what he missed. I'll fill you in later, Chrome told him telepathically. Even Mew. Kuro trembled at the coldness of her emotion. The mafioso must have screwed up big time. A while later, they were gathered around Reborn in a more open area at the edge of town. Put on your rings and tools. Then lit the dying will flame. The hitman instructed. As they did as told, they were surprised by the flames they obtained. Gokudera had all 5 waves revealed as his flame was a combination of storm, cloud, sun, rain and thunder. Hibari's cloud and mist were twirling around one another, the same for Mukuro. Suna, Chrome, Yamamoto and Ryohei only had 1 huge flame each. But there were some things they all had in common. The purity of the flame and the gold and silver glove they had now on. Yes, a glove that was long enough to cover their shoulder and had the Vongola emblem on the back of the hand. What the hell is this? Hibari asked, holding out his burning arm. Your magic tools. The hitman answered simply. But, Chrome began. I see, the silver material, Suna cut her off. What do you understand, boss? Gokudera asked. They combined the dying will bullet and the rebuke bullet. Suna explained. Well, I would have actually wanted to use just the material of the rebuke bullet. But since some of you are too hot-headed, Reborn told them. What do you mean? Ryohei asked, feeling he was the one the hitman was talking about. The rebuke bullet draws out the calm fighting spirit of the user. So it would make you weaker, Suna explained. Oh, I see, the boxer nodded. You do? Gokudera asked with doubt. Yeah, golden looks better on me, Ryohei said cheerful, making the others facepalm. Well, the emblem does look better with gold, Reborn said after a few seconds. True, Suna agreed, but emitting flames like this, won't we collapse in a few minutes? Only if you let the flame cover the whole thing like now. It would be best if you keep only a small flame on the tip of the finger with the ring, Reborn advised. Yeah, I guess that would be best when we are just using spells, Suna admitted. But what about when are using our usual weapons? I'm glad you asked, Reborn grinned. Put on your X gloves. As he put on the gloves, they transformed but not like usual. He now had gold-silver sleeves attached to the gloves, up to the shoulder on both arms. Also, the same kind of crystal that he had on the back of his hands was now on his forearm. And to top it all, he was now in his hyper-dying will mode. But, I didn't swallow any dying will pellets or get shot, Suna said surprised. Good bonus, right, now try using them, Reborn grinned, listening to his home tutor's advice. Suna took off, or rather teleported 100 feet upwards. Wow, the Guardians exclaimed. Even Reborn was pleasantly surprised. Incredible, Suna said as he appeared in front of them. I can now easily control the herd flame. And it doesn't feel any heavier than my normal gloves. Maybe even lighter, actually. Okay, the maneuvering is good. Now let's test its power. Reborn said as he turned towards a rather new building. It looked like it was entirely made of metal. That building is made of steel and titanium. I had it constructed especially for this test. In other words, you want me to fire an X-burner at it? Suna deduced. Yes, I want you to blow the roof off. It's made entirely of titanium. Reborn said, while flying. Okay, Suna said as he got in position within mere seconds. As he began building up flame pressure, he noticed it was a lot faster than usual. Also, it didn't tire him out so much as it used to, meaning those gloves made none of the flame was wasted and that the pressure put on the user was partially took by the gloves. After he finished charging what seemed to be his most powerful blast ever, he unleashed it. X-burner. Air. The flame that came out of his hand was so intense that it did more than just blow off the titanium roof. It melted it completely, the temperature being so high that he had to use his Z.R.O. point breakthrough, first edition, to freeze the stream of hot metal that was heading for his friends. At least he intended to freeze only that portion of the melted titanium. The result was once again quite different. He not only froze the entire mass of molten metal, but somehow absorbed its heat, converting it into flame. Interesting, I didn't see this one coming. Reborn said, impressed. It looks like it combined the 0-point breakthrough first edition with the 0-point breakthrough revised. Let's call it 0-point breakthrough first edition revised, shall we? He proposed and got their approval. I'll go next, Gokudera said as he opened the boxes of his Systema Kai. Summoning his flying flame disc, he tested its speed, and proving it had the same speed as Suna with his normal gloves. Managing to stay on it at such speeds was quite hard, but he somehow managed. He then test-fired his many projectiles. The bullets infused with sun flame were a lot faster, but their power was about the same. His storm-cloud combination had surprisingly good effects. While the power of each beam was the same as before, the propagation was so great that in the end it was no longer a tree-shaped figure, but rather a good impersonation of the X-burner, but not as powerful as the original since it didn't melt the metal. The rain-storm combination softened the metal enough to do some massive damage, while the thunderstorm combo was, well, forbidden until the end of the world. The power did more than just destroys the titanium wall. The blast went through everything inside the building and come out the other side, destroying another warehouse. Now I just need to test the shields, Gokudera said. Allow me, Ryohei said as he had already called out his kangaroo animal box weapon. The white gloves he got from the box animal had merged with the golden-silver ones, making them look like they were like that from the beginning. Maximum cannon, he called out as he launched. Head his fist towards the shields that combined their power to withstand the blast, and they succeeded, but just barely, as they deactivated almost immediately afterwards. Che, the power of the shields is too weak, Gokudera frowned. No, the blast was too powerful. It had over 300.000 flame volts. Suna told them as he still had his contact lens on. Wow, that's some power, Yamamoto exclaimed. I'm up next, he added, drawing his sword and opening his swallow box that immediately merged with the katana. Higure Suin style, Scontro di Rodini, he called out as he passed the building covered in rain flames. Then, he stopped and closed his box and sealed his sword. Hey, what's wrong? Your sword not sharp enough? Gokudera asked, amused. Nah, it's just fine as it is, the swordsman grinned. While distancing himself from the building that revealed to be actually sliced in half and the upper part sliding downwards as the cut was obliquely. I'll try it next, said Mukuro as he grasped his trident with the gloved right hand. The flame from the glove spread across the weapon while the glove itself grew, covering the illusionist's neck and half of his face. His cursed right eye was lit with the mist flame while the cloud flame surrounded it. Stepping towards the part of the building Yamamoto had cut off, he bashed it with his trident, almost breaking the whole thing in half. Next, he hit the ground and pillars of fire erupted, melting the metal and surrounded it with a stone fence to prevent any harm to the others. At that, Chrome stepped forward. Holding her gloved hand out, she summoned her real illusions under the shape of a trident, but unlike Mukuro, that was silver with a black handle, hers was golden with a silver handle, the shape remaining the same. Thrusting the edge, D side of the trident into the molten metal, and channelizing her flames into it, she froze the hot metal. Not by covering it in ice like Suna, but by lowering its temperature very low. Not bad at all. Guess all of the illusions you will use from now on will be real illusions. Reborn said. Are you done yet, herbivores? Hibari snapped, losing his patience. We never asked you to wait. UW. Air just too lazy to step up, Reborn snapped back. Without a word, Hibari brought out his tonfa and, covering it with his cloud flames, he hit the only standing part of the building. Oh, the sheer power. Not only did he destroy half a building in one swing, he blasted it into the sky towards other warehouses and destroyed over a dozen of them, damaging twice as many. This guy is ever more insanely powerful than ever. The others thought. We're done for today, Reborn announced. Take of the magic tools and head home. How do we take them off? Suna asked. Just extinguish your flames. As the flames went out, the gloves retracted to the finger-shaped items. Feeling exhausted, they headed home for some well-deserved rest. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The trip. As October finally arrived, they had learned to control their magic tools. Well, most of the time, anyway. At the airport, the storm, sun, rain and cloud guardians were waiting along with Reborn. They were standing next to a black private jet that had the Vongola emblem on the side. They're late, Hibari snapped. Very late, the hitman corrected him in a low and dangerous voice that made the others tremble. Sorry we're so late, they heard from the sky. Looking upwards, they saw Suna holding a bag in one hand and Chrome in the other. But what impressed them were the gold-and-silver wings covered with orange flames around the edges. It was a technique that only he was able to use, since only he was used to flying. We were caught in traffic. Chrome excused themselves. Where's all you luggage? Yamamoto asked. In here, Suna answered, partially pulling out a trunk from his bag. Oh, the expansion spell. The baseball player understood. Let's go. We don't want to keep the ninth waiting, Gokudera said, and they got on the plane and took off shortly afterwards. They had recently been informed that the ninth will pose as their headmaster, since a friend of his was the headmaster of Hogwarts. So they would have to pass through Italy first to pick him up. The trip to Italy was quite uneventful, mainly because all of the guardians were in a deep slumber. Not because they were tired. No, Reborn had shot all of them in the head with one of his special bullets. Through it, he passed to them his knowledge in the English language. But it was too much for them to handle, so they fainted. By the time they were above Italian grounds, they woke up with one thing on their minds: revenge. But when they saw the look in the Arcobaleno eyes, their enthusiasm faded. Lesson number 1 in staying alive: don't upset an Arcobaleno. Well, maybe Skull. They shortly landed on the Vongola private airstrip. After a dozen mafioso greeted them and inspected the plane, the ninth and his company arrived. Yes, the companions not even Reborn had heard about. And, to his displeasure, they were Xanxus, Squallow and Mammon of the Varia. Yes, the same Varia that tried to kill them a few months ago. Why they were here, Reborn didn't know. And boy, was he in for a shock. Hey, Xanxus, Suna greeted. Hey, boss, the other responded. Silence. Mukuro, who had paired beside Chrome in order to greet the ninth boss, stared at the scene and voiced the other's thoughts. It happened after all. Hell froze over. What is the meaning of this? Reborn, voice trembled for the first time since he became an Arcobaleno. The sight before them was disturbing. Hey, aren't you going to greet your boss's external advisor? Squallow asked evilly. Rather than using words, he pulled out a gun and stuffed its barrel in Suna's mouth. It was my idea, the ninth said calmly. Pulling out the gun, the home tutor turned towards his old friend. Are you serious, Timoteo? Since when? Since July. Very well. Reborn gave up. He knew it was useless to argue. What's so well about it? Gokudera muttered but was ignored. Where is the green infant? Hibari asked, and reminding them of the second reason they were there. Yeah, wasn't he supposed to meet us here? Suna added. About that, He suddenly had a breakthrough and couldn't come, the ninth informed them. But he gave me these suitcases, he added as an underling appeared with them. One of T. Hem had the Vongola emblem and an X on it, while the other had XX. Obviously, one was for the Vongola Guardians and one for the Varia. Inside, there were storage boxes, one for each of the participants to the mission. But while most of them were empty, the ones that belonged to Reborn, Verde and the Ninth already contained their wands. Unlike the ones Suna or even Xanxus had, their wands looked like traditional ones in shape and were entirely golden. Why are your wands pure golden, Reborn-san? Gokudera asked. More like when did you get yours? Suna asked surprised. You were with us almost the whole time. I got mine a long time ago. And it's only golden simply because of that. At the time, the rebuke bullet didn't exist. The hitman answered. We got ours on the same occasion, the ninth added. Yeah, some Greek made them, Mammon, Viper added. Anyway, about your boxes, as you asked, they were made to be opened only by your own rings, the ninth said while they opened them. So Reborn and Mammon will use their pacifiers instead? Suna asked. Yes, that's right. Also, me and Mammon will not be participating in the selection for the tournament, since it wouldn't be fair considering the age difference. Reborn said. Selection? Xanxus asked confused. Oh, didn't I mention that only one student from each school is chosen to participate? Only the most fitting student will be selected. Reborn said. Well, our mission itself is to guard the school, so it doesn't matter. What are the chances that two people are just as worthy? Squallow asked out loud. Slim at best. Mammon said. It's about time we board the plane, Reborn said, and after a few minutes they took off to Britain. After about half hour, Suna and Xanxus asked them to gather around them. After a long debate and careful consideration, we came to the conclusion that something must be done before we reach the school. Since all of us will pass as 17-year-olds, we must all look around that age. And with one exception, we all do. Suna said like reading a speech. Yeah, this woman is too short, Squallow said pointing at Chrome. Chrome is perfect as she is, Suna said sharply and made the Italian group raise a brow and Chrome blush. You're the problem, Shark, Xanxus said. How? Squallow demanded. A 17-year-old doesn't have his hair that long. The Varia boss answered with a grin. No, Squallow yelled, and ran to the toilet and looked himself inside. I can't deny I didn't see this coming. Mammon cited. Listen Shark, I know you promised to not cut your hair till I'm the Vongola boss, but since that can't happen, you can cut it, you hear? Xanxus spoke to the locked door. Like I give a damn. Nobody cuts my hair, Squallow yelled. You know, there's a spell that regrows one's hair to the wanted length. Suna tried. Just while we're there. No, okay. I tried, Suna said turning to Chrome. You can go ahead and cut it, he told the girl who nodded and snapped her fingers. There was a clang heard from inside the toilet. A few moments later, Squallow, desperate yell was heard before the door was open. His hair was now not even at shoulder length. Well, at least you won't have to bath for 3 hours just to wash it anymore, Mammon grinned. At that, the rest of them burst into laughter. Squallow on the other hand wasn't amused. With a swift strike, he cut off the hair on Chrome's head that have he the pineapple look. Or at least he thought he did. A few moments later, the illusion disappeared and he saw Chrome by Suna's side. You just reminded me of the other thing we need to discuss. Suna said, as long as we're at that school, I don't want any of you to start any fights. Don't worry, Suna, we'll be on our best behavior. Yamamoto said, yes, we won't cause any trouble. Chrome added, you two aren't the ones I'm worried about. The others on the other hand, Suna trailed off. What about us? Hibari snapped at him. Well, let me make things clear, I don't want to hear about you beating someone up because they were crowding. Xanxus, this is an undercover mission, so don't even think about complaining about the accommodations or the food like you usually do. Squallow, don't slice anyone up just because they were there. Mammon, no extortions. Ryohei, don't challenge anyone to a fight at whim. Gokudera, don't blow anyone up just because they looked at us the wrong way. Suna told them, each throwing him angry looks when they were called. Got that? Reborn grinned. And Reborn, Yes. Don't use people as target practice, Suna said, looking away. The hitman stared at him for a few seconds, digesting what he had just heard, and that put his gun to Suna's head. How about I shoot just you? He threatened. Now, the ninth intervened with a smile. We'll be there soon, so you should all change into your suits, he added. Yeah, you're right. The Sun Archibaldino agreed. Chrome, you can change in the back, there's a mobile wall that can be extended to block the view, he informed the girl, who nodded. As a precaution, Suna chose to change the furthest back among the boys. A few minutes later, they were all standing around the ninth, who was asking them something crazy. You want us to jump off the plane onto the school grounds? You really are insane, you old fart. Xanxus yelled at the old man. That's crazy, Suna said while staring at the ninth in disbelief. Look, I wouldn't ask this, normally, but in the society of wizards it's quite the habit to show off when you meet some foreigners, the ninth explained. So we want you to show off with your box weapons, Reborn told them with a grin. But, Chrome began. Don't worry, I got it covered, he assured her. It's a direct order, the Vongola ninth added, making them go stiff. Refusing to obey would mean death. About an hour later, they were above England. I hope you liked it. Please review. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. The Arrival and Introductions. At Hogwarts. Are they here yet? Ron asked, annoyed. Obviously not. Hermione snapped at him. It was the fourth time he asked in the last 3 minutes. I wonder why they changed the rules, though, the girl wondered. What rules? Harry asked from Ron's side. The part about the number of schools participating, she said. What about it? Ron asked, confused. Goodness, Ron, it is called the Triwizard Tournament for something, isn't it? And the reason would be, there are 3 schools participating, each represented by 1 wizard. It even says in its name. Hermione erupted. Oh, now that you mentioned, Dumbledore. He mentioned the names of 3 other schools. Beauxbatons, Durmstrang and Vaux. Harry tried to remember. Vongola. That's exactly what I'm curious about. I never heard or read of it. Beauxbatons and RMS Trang are considered along with Hogwarts as the greatest schools in Europe, and they have participated in the tournament together. But Vongola, she said. Maybe it isn't from Europe. Harry made a reasonable suggestion. I doubt it. The name is Italian. I looked it up. Vongola is the Italian word for clam. Hermione said, lost in thought. She was however distracted by the arrival of the Beauxbatons guests in their flying giant carriage pulled by huge winged horses. Their headmistress was very tall herself, about as tall as Hagrid. After quick greetings, she and her students went inside to warm up, since it was very chilly outside. A few minutes later, from the lake's surface emerged the mast of a ship from which the Durmstrang headmaster, Karkaroff, came with his students, among them Ang, the famous Bulgarian Quidditch seeker, Viktor Krum. Of course, the commotion his arrival caused was great indeed, but it was cut short when he and his colleagues went inside, leaving the Hogwarts students waiting for the final school. Are these Vongola guys really coming? Ron asked, annoyed after a few minutes. I don't know. Maybe they. Hey, you hear that? Hermione asked, looking around and then at the sky. Hear what? Harry asked, looking upwards. The hell is that? Ron asked, staring at the dark figure in the sky. It's an airplane, Harry said, staring at it. A Muggle transportation machine, Hermione explained before asking, worried. They're not gonna try landing here, will they? No clue, but I don't think it would work too well. There is enough space, but landing on wet grass is dangerous even when landing a broom. With a thing that large, Harry said. When it was nearly above them, they saw some colored lights dropping from it. Those lights were, people are falling from it. Ron yelled. They don't even have brooms. Hermione added. As the falling people got closer to the ground, the light that was now visible as flames got bigger and they started maneuvering in midair before landing without any incident. They formed 2 rows, between them landing 4 other people, an old man, a black-haired teenager and a brown-haired boy that was holding a purple-haired girl in his arms. As they headed for the stairway, the girl took her place in the rows, another teenager boy similar to her appearing seemingly out of thin air beside her. The 2 rows accompanied the 3 and that landed lastly, walking alongside with them as if they were bodyguards. When they got close enough to Dumbledore, the old man called out. Albus, how have you been? Oh, I'm fine. It's good to see you again. Timoteo. Dumbledore smiled as he shook his hand. These are my students, the ninth boss said, allowing each of them to introduce themselves. And these two, he began as Reborn landed on Suna's shoulder and Mammon appeared flying beside Xanxus, are the Archibald of the Sun, Reborn, and of the Mist, Viper. He finished while the two nodded when their names were called out. Honored to meet you, Dumbledore said with a slight bow. Pleased to meet you too, Reborn said. The students that were staring at them were more than surprised. Did Dumbledore just bow to that baby? Ron asked, blinking strongly. That old man said he's the Archibald of the Sun, Hermione said, lost in thought. That kid looks less than 2 years old. How can he talk like that? Fred asked. I don't know, but frankly I'm more interested in how they landed. All I managed to see were those flames, Harry said as he looked at Suna. For some reason, Dumbledore seemed to respect him just as much as he did Reborn or the Ninth. After that, they all entered the castle and then the Great Hall. The Beauxbaton students took seats at the Ravenclaw table, the ones from Durmstrang joined the Slytherins and the Vongola the Gryffindors. While Ron was kind of down because he didn't get to sit next to Krum, Harry was rather pleased by the opportunity to find out more about Suna and his colleagues. And he was in for a rather big surprise. It was true that Xanxus was now Suna's external advisor. And it was true that he had some respect for Suna since he defeated him fair and square. But that didn't mean he showed it when the Ninth wasn't around. Like now, for instance, when the old man was at Dumbledore's side with Reborn. What did you say, bastard? Gokudera demanded in Japanese. I asked. Sawada, why'd I have to stay at the same table with trash like you and the rest? He answered, pissed off as well. I'll bite you to death, Hibari declared, taking out his tonfa. Bring it, Squallow said as he was about to reveal his sword. Finally some fun, Mammon said as he started floating. I'll say, Mukuro's voice said, and an indigo mist started to appear beside a scared crone. Knock it off, Suna suddenly said in the same dangerous and low voice he used when he had convinced Xanxus to work for him. But he used English, so the Gryffindors froze as well, not that any of them were still speaking as they watched the Vongola students argue. Actually, most of the students around them were staring. And all of them froze when they heard Suna as well. At the teacher's table, Reborn grinned towards his student. There was hope for him yet. Sorry to disturb you, 10th. Gokudera bowed, hitting his head on the table. The herbivore is growing fangs. Hibari grinned. Just don't cause any more trouble, Suna pleaded in his normal voice. Or what? Squallow dared. Remember what I did to Xanxus last time? Suna asked, avoiding Squallow's now trembling glare. What did you do, Suna? Yamamoto inquired. 0-point breakthrough. First edition, he answered, still looking away. That cooled him off real good. Ryohei trembled. Who wouldn't be? Xanxus muttered. What's the 0-point breakthrough? First edition, Harry suddenly asked, and the Vongola realized they had been speaking in English after Suna's outburst. It's Suna's personal technique, a voice said. They all turned around and saw Reborn with a martini in his hand. How cute, a lot of girls said. Can I hug him? A more daring girl asked. Sure, knock yourself out, Xanxus answered with a evil grin. Don't, he means it literally. Reborn put a gun to her head when she got too close. Why? Harry asked, staring at the gun. Why does a baby have something like that? Because I'm a. Reborn was interrupted b. Why Suna's cough and then continued, teacher. I need to keep my students in line. You're kidding. What a funny kid, Fred said, and almost everyone started logging. But they all became silent when a bullet went over Fred's head, burning his red hair a little. Actually, he's pushing 100. And so am I, Mammon said, his hood hiding his grin. I heard that people get smaller as they grow old, but this is going overboard, Harry said. Not to mention he grew younger rather than older, Ron added. Back to the technique. Hermione changed the subject as she saw the look in the hitman's eyes. Right, Harry said, getting the hint. But before that, ALOW is to introduce ourselves. My name is Harry Potter. These are Hermione Granger, Ron, Ginny, Fred and George Weasley. he continued, and the others waved when they were named. Pleased to meet you. I'm Tsunayoshi Sawada, and these are Hayato Gokudera, Takeshi Yamamoto, Chrome Dokuro, Sasagawa Ryohei, Hyoya Hibari, Suna said. And they are Xanxus, Squalo and Mammon. Reborn continued. Aren't you forgetting someone, Archibeleno? Mukuro asked, fully a-pairing beside Chrome. Oh, I thought you wanted to stay hidden. Reborn lied. This is Rokudo Mukuro. Where the bloody hell did he come from? Ron asked, jumping away from the table. I was already here. You just didn't notice. Mukuro smiled evilly. What's with your eye? Harry stared. What's with your scar? Mukuro snapped back. Point taken. He gave up. About that technique. Why did you call it personal? Did he create the spell himself? Hermione inquired. No, it's because he's the only one alive that can use it. Reborn answered. There's no such thing. As long as a wizard knows how to cast it, he can use it. Hermione argued. It's his blood that allows him to use it. Xanxus muttered. So you think that magic should be kept to the pure bloods? Hermione asked, raising her voice. No, it's not a matter of should or shouldn't. It's about can or cannot. Since the founding of Vongola, only the 1st, 9th and 10th bosses could obtain it. Reborn explained. In other words, it's a matter of resolve even for those who have what it takes. Gokudera finished. Bosses? Hermione asked, confused. Yeah, the 9th is the one talking to Dumbledore right now. Oh, you mean Headmaster. But if he's the 9th, then, Hermione trailed off, looking surprised at Suna. Yeah, I'm the 10th boss to be, he muttered. Lucky me. Somehow you don't look very happy. Ginny commented. Oh, he's just concerned about what happened to the previous candidates. Mukuro grinned. What happened to them? Ron asked. The most qualified at the time, Enrico, was shot in a feud. The young number 2, Matsumo, was drowned. The favorite child, Federico, was found reduced to bone. Why the bloody hell are you showing us photos for? Ron asked, feeling sick. I like remembering the good old days. Xanxus grinned. Hey, Hermione began, looking at Xanxus kind of creeped out. You didn't do them in, did you? As Suna and the others looked at him, he avoided their gaze. Xanxus, you, Suna began. He was still affected by the 9th's technique at the time, Reborn said, and Suna sighed relieved. Before the hitman added, besides, a good boss has someone else to do their dirty work. At that, Suna choked with his pumpkin juice and said, over my dead body, but added quickly, it's a figure of speech. Reborn, when he saw a gun pointed at his head. Okay, but you never told us just what that technique does. Hermione dared. It freezes stuff, Xanxus said, looking pissed off. Or people, Squalo added. At least it used to. Reborn grinned. What do you mean? He can't freeze stuff anymore? Xanxus asked hopefully. Sorry to disappoint you, Xanxus, but it still does and more. Mukuro grinned. I somehow managed to combine the 1st edition version with my custom version, Suna explained in a whisper to Xanxus. Great, besides freezing me, it'll drain me dry, Xanxus muttered. Oh, if you want just freezing. Chrome has learned how to do it. Suna smiled to the girl, making her blush. That true? Xanxus asked, annoyed. Yes, but I still can freeze fast enough to keep someone from dying in the process. And no, I don't know that because I tried, she added. When Squalo opened his mouth. Great, another one, Xanxus said, but it's not the 0-point breakthrough, 1st edition. It isn't negative energy, Reborn added. It's just a freezing technique. Hold on, Hermione interrupted them. You're telling us you were completely frozen and survived. That's not possible. I mean the frostbite. I got hit by it 3 times. The last 2 for only a couple of minutes, though. Xanxus snapped at her. What about the 1st time? Ron asked, curious. Xanxus looked away and muttered something. Can you say that again? We didn't quite hear you, Fred said. And it's none of your friggin' business. Xanxus snapped at him, his hand beginning to glow and his scars appearing. Xanxus, Suna warned him. He responded and got back to eating. Sorry about that, he's just a little edgy around that subject. Try not to bring it up again with him around, will you? Suna whispered to Harry, who nodded. So, where are you guys from? Hermione asked. Take a guess. Reborn suggested. Well, Vongola sounds Italian, but you were speaking in Japanese earlier, so, Hermione trailed off. You can speak Japanese? Yamamoto asked her. Yes, I had a Japanese exchange student at my previous school, before I came to Hogwarts so I learned from him. Well, the school is in Italy. But some of the students are Japanese. You could say that we have a special branch in Japan. Reborn said, pleasantly surprised. Tell me, do you like sushi? Yamamoto asked her with a smile. I just love it. Hermione smiled. Good, maybe I'll make some if I get the chance. The swordsman grinned. You? She asked. Oh, that's something I'm looking forward to, Squalo said with a grin. Your father was bragging that you're as good as him. Mammon added. You know my dad? Yamamoto asked, surprised. Yeah, we were regulars during the ring conflict. Xanxus said. Best sushi I ever had. His dad owns a sushi restaurant. Reborn explained. Well, everyone needs a day job. Anyway, I'll talk to the ninth to ask Dumbledore if you can use the kitchen, Suna told Yamamoto. Thanks. Yamamoto grinned. Don't forget to ask about some training areas. Reborn suggested. Yeah, we wouldn't want to destroy the castle in one day, now would we? Xanxus grinned. As the Gryffindors stared at him. The feast ended and Dumbledore got up and started explaining the procedure. After that, he allowed Mr. Crouch to face the disappointment of the students under 17. Then, Dumbledore took over again and asked Filch to bring the casket. When it was opened, most of the Vongola gasped. A carved wooden goblet was pulled out. The goblet of fire, Dumbledore declared as everyone stared on the goblet that had a blue flame around its top. That fire, Squalo began. Yeah, the same rain flame you and I have, Yamamoto whispered back. We'll talk about it later. Now shush, Reborn whispered, and they paid attention to Dumbledore. Now, since we have all of our guests here and since they are all allowed to submit their names, I would like them to do it right now, before I place it in the read corridor and put the age line around it. At that, the other foreign students pulled out some paper and began writing their names on it. What are you guys doing? Reborn asked in a bored voice. Writing our names down. Yamamoto asked, unsure. Waste of time. Just use a flame seal. Mammon said. You mean with our rings? Suna asked. Of course. All of your rings are unique and personalized. Reborn explained. Good point. Xanxus said as he lit the flame of his ring that had the Varia crest on it. Dumbledore is already used to this kind of signature, the hitman added. Very well. Suna cited, and everyone lit their rings, and to the observers' amazement they pressed them down on the paper, each leaving a different burning crest. Well, what was more surprising was that the paper didn't burn, letting just the crests on fire. After the Durmstrang and Bobaton students strode to the goblet and submitted their names, the Vongola went in front of Dumbledore themselves. Oh, I see you're still using that signing method. Indeed, a nearly impossible to imitate signature, Dumbledore said with enthusiasm as they put their flamed papers in the goblet. Very well. Now, I will place the goblet inside the age line, the headmaster said as he picked up the goblet. It will be ready in about an hour. But you should head to bed for now. You have until tomorrow evening to submit your names. Good night. He finished and made sign for Suna to approach. We have prepared one of our vacant dormitory wings for you and your companions. There are rooms of 2, but you, the young lady and Timoteo, there are separate rooms. Dumbledore whispered. What about Xanxus? Suna asked, knowing what he would say. Well, there are more rooms available, but it was Timoteo who decided it to be this way, and apparently he wants someone to keep a constant eye on Xanxus. Dumbledore smiled. I see. Thank you very much. Professor Snape will escort you there, Dumbledore added more loudly, and turned to Snape, who got up and nodded. Follow me. Your luggage has already been sent to your rooms, Snape said and motioned towards the door. There, they arrived at the same time as Karkaroff and his students and Harry and his friends. As they stopped to allow Karkaroff to exit first, he was about to leave when he saw Harry's scar. He froze, staring at it, and his students began to do it too. Yes, Karkaroff, that's Harry Potter, a voice said, and as they turned around they saw the creepy-looking Moody, with his scarred face, fake leg, and most of all his large blue rotating magical eye. You, Karkaroff said loudly, staring at Moody. Me. And if you don't have any other business there, I suggest you move. You're blocking the way, Moody replied. Without a word, Karkaroff turned around and left the hall. What's with him? Suna wondered as they followed Snape to their rooms. As they reached their rooms, Snape stopped. If you need anything else, inform a member of the staff, Snape said in a tone that clearly said not to call him again. Yes, thank you, Professor, Suna began. Snape. Severus Snape. The Slytherin house head answered. Hard to pronounce. Snake will do. We'll call you if we need anything. Snake. Reborn said to Snape's annoyance. And without further ado, he closed the door in his face. Reborn. Suna said upset. Why did you do that for? Over 3/4 of the school hate that guy. We can't lose our support on the first day, now can we? Reborn said as he walked to the center of the common room. Besides, he can't be trusted. He's a very sly fellow. I have to agree on that one. He's no the kind of friend you would want to make here, the ninth said walking away. Good night, he added as he entered his room. Well, all the rooms have the name of the occupants on the doors. So get to sleep, Reborn said. Hold on, Xanxus said in a dangerous voice. Why do I have to share the room with the shark? What? Squallow asked as he stared at the door. I was the ninth's decision, Suna said knowing the reaction. I don't give a damn. Xanxus yelled and his hand began to glow. Calm down, Reborn said in a low voice that could freeze one's soul. We can change the arrangements tomorrow. One night won't kill you, Xanxus. But it will kill me, Squallow said angrily. Then how about this? Reborn began with a twinkle in his eyes. Xanxus can move to Suna's room and Suna can sleep, cough not that cough, with Chrome. Wah, the room sounded. I won't allow it, Reborn-san. Gukudera said. Oi, oi, Yamamoto snickered. Did we miss something in that last few months? Mammon asked Reborn. A lot, Reborn smirked. As head of discipline, Hibari began. Do you agree with my idea? Reborn asked the Suna and Chrome, who were the only ones silent. Well, they began blushing. Fine, I won't kill the shark for the night. Xanxus covered them. Xanxus, you bastard. Reborn, Mukuro, Suna and even Chrome thought at the same time. Well, I should be going, Mukuro said as he took of his ring and gave it to Chrome. After that, he disappeared. Soon, they all headed to their rooms, got changed and went to bed. I'll need to have a talk with threatened Xanxus tomorrow. Nobody messes up my planes and gets away with it, Reborn thought before he fell asleep, with his eyes open as usual. As I'm sure you've noticed, this chapter was longer than the others before it. That's because I'm going to put this FIC on hold for 1 or 2 weeks max, so I can write a few chapters on my other Harry Potter crossover FIC, The New Teach. R of Hogwarts is Neggy Springfield, since it's been a while since I updated it. For now, please review and give me some reasons why Xanxus should cooperate with Reborn in the matchmaking process. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The Search of the Disciplinarian. The Vongola woke up early in the morning, something none of them were used to. Too early. It was 5 o'clock, but unlike the ninth who fell back asleep, the others weren't so lucky. More like Reborn didn't let them, actually. Since you're up, let's take a short walk around the grounds, he grinned. I'll guard the ninth, Mammon announced. As they headed out, they noticed that all the portraits were looking at them as they walked by. Even the armors seemed to follow their movements. Xanxus, don't, Reborn warned as the Italian's hand began to glow. They walked through the large wooden doors of the castle and gazed upon the view. The grass plain, the lake and the dark forest that spread to the horizon. What a view, Suna whispered. You said it, 10th. Gokudera agreed. What's so great about it? Squallow mumbled. We got views like this back in Italy. Xanxus added. I doubt it, Mukuro countered. What do you mean? Squallow asked. Do you have a giant squid in your lakes? Reborn grinned. Or monsters in forests, Mukuro added. Monsters. Suna panicked. HOI. Sounds fun. Squallow grinned. That's why it's called the Forbidden Forest. Mukuro added. True, we're not allowed to go inside it. Yet, Reborn grinned. Reborn, when you said training area yesterday, you didn't mean, Suna trailed off. Of course not. Dumbledore wouldn't let us harm any of its inhabitants. Reborn said before he added, some of the creatures in there are peaceful and intelligent. Thank goodness. Suna cited, I'll be the one to design the training grounds. Reborn cut his enthusiasm short. After that, they took a walk around the lake, looking at the Durmstrang ship, and staring at the Bobaton's giant horses. What wouldn't Dino do to have one of those? Reborn said, you would be surprised if I told you the answer. Squallow smirked. What do you mean? Suna asked. Well, he can't actually ride a horse with his men behind him, right? They have to give him some space, Squallow trailed evilly. In other words, he gets in the hospital every time he does, right? Mukuro grinned. There's just something odd about it, though, Xanxus said deep in thought. What? For every minute he stays on, he gets a week in the hospital, Squallow explained. Odd coincidence, don't you think? Moron. Gokudera said, and even Suna had to agree. After that, they took a walk to the Olary. There, they were informed that each of them now own an owl. And telling them apart was rather easy. Despite their identical physical appearance, the Y-Owl had a colored headband with the rank of their masters and affiliation. After some of them sent letters home, they returned to the castle as it was already time for breakfast. The Great Hall was completely transformed. While the day before it was decorated with the emblems of the Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Gryffindor and Slytherin houses, now it was decorated with carved pumpkins with candles inside. While hundreds of bats were gathered around the ceiling. Now that I think about it, today is the 31st of October. Gokudera mentioned as he looked at the flying pumpkins. So, Ryohei asked, it's Halloween. Reborn declared, landing on Suna's head, grinning. He had a pair of vampire teeth in his mouth. Reborn, my head isn't a chair. Suna said, annoyed. It is for me. The hitman grinned but jumped on Yamamoto's shoulder. When did you get changed, kid? The swordsman asked, looking at the vampire outfit. He always has done that unnoticed, Mammon said, appearing beside him. The 9th is having breakfast with Dumbledore somewhere else, he added. As they had breakfast, they were joined by Harry, Ron and Hermione, who were laughing like the others around them. What's so funny? Gokudera asked. Fred and George tried to go past Dumbledore's age line using a potion. Hermione said with a grin. Did it work? Suna asked, curious. No, but they got something to remember it. Harry laughed. What? A pair of long, white beards. Ron said, laughing as well. Well, they did want to pose as older guys, Xanxus commented, and the others burst into laughter. A few minutes later, applause was heard as Angelina Johnson entered the hall. I just did it. She declared. Did what? Ron asked the obvious. I entered my name for the tournament. That's great. I hope you'll be the champion for Hogwarts. Hermione said. Thanks. She smiled. Yeah, rather you than that pretty boy, Diggeroy, Ron commented, earning furious glares from the passing Hufflepuffs. As they finished eating, they noted something that made even Xanxus a little worried. Where's Hibari? Suna asked, alarmed. He must have left earlier. Why? Hermione said. Oh, God, we have to find him quick. Suna panicked. Before the hospital gets filled. Gokudera cited getting up, or the morgue. Reborn added grimly. Why? Ron asked, confused. Hibari doesn't like crowds, Yamamoto tried to explain. Isn't that the understatement of the year? Suna mumbled, massaging his neck. Sorry, could you guys help us find him? We really don't know our way around the castle. Yamamoto said. Sure, we have the day off and no homework. Harry offered, getting up. I'll help as well. That guy looks feisty. Angelina giggled, earning a few amazed glares. Okay. Suna hesitated. Let's split up. I'll go with Harry and Reborn. Yamamoto and Ryohei go with Ron. Mammon and Chrome with Hermione. Xanxus, Squallow and Gokudera with Angelina. Talk about getting all the feisty ones, Mukuro said ironically, appearing near Chrome. Mukuro, you stay here in case Hibari comes back on his own. Reborn said, and try not to cause too much attention yourself. Suna said as a few girls passed by, looking at Mukuro and giggling. And how am I gonna do that? Mukuro asked ironically. I said try, didn't I? Suna cited. After that, they split up, Harry's group heading for the roof and the observatory, Hermione's group towards the library and the hospital wing. Ron's towards the dungeons and some of the classrooms, and Angelina's outside to the Quidditch stadium. Where could that guy had gotten? Suna asked himself. Well, the castle is pretty big, Harry said. But why didn't we notice him leave? Suna asked, annoyed. He could have used his mist flames. Reborn said. Mist flames? Harry asked, confused. Yeah, Suna said absently. What are the mist flames? Harry insisted. A way of manifestation of one's energy. They're called the Dying Will flames. The mist flames are one of the 7 different types. Reborn explained. And how did that help him go unnoticed? The mist element is good at hiding things and creating illusions. Reborn continued. Oh, I see. Hey, Reborn. Suna asked for the hitman's attention. What? Wasn't that supposed to be kept secret? Suna asked ironically. Don't you lecture me, Dame Suna. The baby demanded, hitting him on the head. It won't be a secret once one of you guys will carry out the first task. He added, and then turned to Harry. And you'll keep quiet about it until then, he said, pointing a gun at his head. All right, but can I at least tell Ron and Hermione about it? Harry tried. Sure, they seem to be able to keep secrets. Besides, since all 3 of you are underage, you won't be in the tournament, so it's even better. The hitman agreed. By the way, you used those flames to land yesterday. Didn't you? Harry asked. Yep, they're good as propulsion. Reborn confirmed. Let's leave the flames aside for now and focus on finding Hibari, Suna said, looking back at the 2. When he looked forward again, he saw something that made him freeze. Hibari was holding Draco Malfoy against the wall with a tonfa at his neck. Hibari, Suna yelled. What did I say about picking fights? They challenged me. Hibari stated. Come on, who be dumb enough to ever do something like that? Reborn said as Draco slid down on the floor. When I tell Professor Snape about this, he began trembling. Oh, he's Snake's student. That explains it, Reborn commented and made Harry laugh. Hey, kid, Reborn said as he got close to Malfoy, you can go ahead and tell Snake, and while you're at it give him this note. And don't you dare refuse. Reborn threatened as he gave Draco an envelope. The Slytherin, embarrassed and terrified, took off towards the dungeons without a second thought. What did you give him? Reborn, Suna asked, curious. A request for a separate room for Xanxus. Another night with him and Squalo will become shark fin soup. Reborn grinned. I wouldn't mind to have some, Hibari said evilly. So you guys have 2 people per room? Harry asked as they walked to the terrace. No, the 9th, Suna and Chrome had their own rooms from the start. Eborn explained and jumped on the railing. Oh, you and Miss Chrome have separate rooms? Harry asked with a grin but pretending to sound surprised. Hey, Suna yelled, blushing. Sorry, couldn't help it. Harry laughed and even Hibari gave an amused smile. Well, since still have time before lunch, let's take a walk. Reborn suggested. You're coming along, Hibari. Suna added, noticing his guardian trying to leave. And exactly why should I agree with this? Hibari raised a brow. Did you know you've already got a fan club? Some of those girls are more daring than they seem. Harry grinned. Fine, Hibari agreed with a shiver. He didn't want to take any chances. Let's head to Hagrid's then. Harry suggested. He could have details on the tournament. Sounds good to me. But who's Hagrid? Suna asked. The key keeper at Hogwarts and care for magical creatures professor. Harry responded promptly. The big guy with the messy beard that came late yesterday. Reborn added. Oh, the one with bandaged hands. Suna understood. Yep, that's Hagrid. His new pets are a little too lively. Harry cited as they headed for the grounds. Chapter 8. Revelations at Hagrid's and the Champions. Hearing a knock at the door, Hagrid smiled and went to answer. He was thinking it was Harry and his friends. Well, he was partially right. Hey there, Harry, I thought you forgot where I live. Hagrid smiled as he opened the door. But then he looked surprised at the group. Hi Hagrid, Harry greeted. Do you mind if we keep you company? But stopped to stare at Hagrid's mustard suit and necktie like a chessboard. Oh, I see you get along well with the Vongola students. Hagrid smiled, oblivious to their stares. Chaozu, Dumbledore said that you're aware of the real situation. Reborn said. Yeah, but, Hagrid trailed off looking at Harry, who was looking confused. He would find out eventually anyway, so knowing from the start would be better. Reborn said, jumping on Harry's shoulder. Know what, Hagrid? Harry asked. Have a seat first, Suna suggested with a sigh. Well, Harry insisted after they all sat at the large table. Vongola is not a school and we're not wizards, Suna said, looking him in the eye. Talk about being direct and concise, Hagrid thought. Harry blinked. Once, twice. Is this some kind of foreign joke? He asked. He was not amused. He looked them in the eye except Hibari, who was annoyed by the crowd. None of them seemed to be lying. But last night, he tried. We used our dying will. It can naturally be manifested on the verge of death. But with training and or with catalyses we can draw it out at any time. It's similar to magic power, but has some special characteristics according to the type. Suna explained. And yet, you're not wizards, Harry said. Then what are you? At that, Suna and Hibari avoided his eyes. We're Mafia, Reborn said simply. Oh, okay, you've gone senile, Harry said, turning to Hagrid. But bang was suddenly heard and he smelled burned hair. Touching the tips of his hair he realized it was his own. I'm not joking, Reborn said coldly while the gun turned back into Leon. Dumbledore requested the Ninth to send guards for the school during the tournament, and he came along himself with the best. Being a school was the best cover they were able to come up with. But Dumbledore and the Mafia. The Vongola owes him a favor from World War II. Some incident with a dark wizard called Grindelwald. Dumbledore helped protect some civilians that were under the Vongola's protection. Reborn said. Why would the Mafia care about civilians? Harry asked with doubt. That was the reason the Vongola was initially created. And it was the only reason I ever did something for the Vongola. Suna said solemnly. Or ever will, he added. But still, Mafia is Mafia, so the group called Arcobaleno was formed to supervise the Mafia world. Reborn cited. And other things. And that's why the Furs T-Boss created the 0-point breakthrough, first edition. To seal away those who threatened the safety of the family. Suna added. But all this doesn't matter. We're here to protect this school. Period. Hibari said coldly. Fine, Harry said after a few moments of silence, I'll believe you. But who else knows about this? All of the professors, Hagrid said. So I take it you want me to keep this secret from everyone else? Harry asked annoyed. Pretty much, but I guess you can tell Ron and Hermione. Nosy as you three are, they'll find out quick enough. Hagrid admitted. And we could use someone who knows among the students. Reborn added. So you want me to work for you? Harry asked, raising a brow. No, that's not it. Suna said quickly. We need to have someone among the students to guide them in case something happens. Even if we are here, we can't always prevent attacks. We're mainly here to counter them. Fine, but on one condition. Harry agreed. And that would be, show me some of your spells. No. Techniques, sure, but not right now. It's almost time for lunch. And we have to tell Dumbledore that you know. Reborn agreed and jumped on Suna's shoulder as he was getting up. A knock was heard at the door and it was Hermione and Ron. They and Harry decided to stay at Hagrid's for lunch so they can discuss, and the Vongola headed to the castle. What, Mafia? Ron yelled. Are you serious? But that's, Hermione was at a loss of words. Yeah, but they said. Harry explained everything while Hagrid nodded when they looked at him for confirmation. So, they're here to guard the castle. Well, flying without brooms sure makes them sound qualified, Ron mumbled. Well, they said they used something else. Harry remembered. Well, they'll fill us in later. We should head for the castle, Hermione said, looking out the window. Why, it's almost dinner time, Hagrid realized. Wow, we sure lost track of time. Let's hurry. They'll announce the champions afterwards, Ron said enthusiastically. Hold on a sec, Hagrid said, and he went to a wardrobe and started searching inside. After a few seconds, a very intense smell was in the air. Hagrid, cough, cough. What are you doing? Oh, you like it? Hagrid asked, oblivious, and turned around, revealing his beard now tied. He had a bottle in his hand. Is that aftershave? Hermione asked. Well, cologne actually. Guess I used too much. All was it off? Give me a sec, he said and went outside to wash his face in a barrel. Hagrid. Cologne. Hermione asked as all three stared out the window. And what's with the suit? Ron whispered. Hey, someone's coming. It's Madame Maxime. Hagrid's going to the castle with her. Harry said staring outside. Well, that explains everything, Hermione said vaguely amused. Let's go to the castle. After they arrived at the castle, they saw the Vongola talking to Snape. And while Reborn was smiling and some of the Vongola were amused, Snape was certainly not. You should teach your students how to behave to strangers, don't you agree, Snake? Reborn grinned. The nearby students froze and looked at Snape. For the last time, my name is not Snake. The potions professor nearly yelled. Yeah, but it suits you better. Now, back to important stuff. I want that room ready by 9. Now, if you excuse me, Reborn said to everyone's astonishment and guided the Vongola to the table. Snape was about to blow. Harry and his friends avoided to go near him and went to the Gryffindor table themselves. That, Hermione began to tell Reborn, was bloody brilliant, Ron stated. You're my new best friend, little guy. George said appearing next to them. We've been annoying him for years and we never succeeded to get him this mad before. Fred added, I take it he's not very popular around here. Yamamoto asked with a smile. Over 3/4 of the school hate his guts. Harry answered. Gryffindors in particular. Hermione added. Harry in particular. Reborn said and took a sip of his drink. How do you? Ron started. Oh, I see. Dumbledore filled you in, huh? Harry grinned. Well, he did mention something about the 3 of you kicking his ass last term, Reborn admitted. Yeah, well, stuff happens, Ron grinned. Couldn't agree more. Reborn returned the grin. As they ate, everyone looked at the goblet of fire that was now placed in front of the staff table. Checking if it had decided the champions. Almost time, Fred whispered. A few moments later, Dumbledore stood up and announced. The goblet has almost decided on the candidates. When I call their names, they will go past the staff table and in the room next to the hall, he explained and pointed at the door. As he finished, the blue flames turned red and fiery stream of it shot upwards. From it dropping a piece of parchment. The champion for Durmstrang is Victor Krum. Dumbledore announced as he read the paper. The applause and cheers filled the great hall, but Karkaroff's voice was still heard. Bravo, Victor, I knew you could do it. After Krum went past Dumbledore and into the side room, they all became silent as the flames had gone red. The stream of red fire shot the next result. The champion for Beauxbatons is Fleur Delacour. Dumbledore announced. Look, it's that girl that looks like Avila. Ron said but only Suna and Harry heard him because of the applause. Look at how disappointed they are. Hermione said looking at the rest of the Beauxbatons students. Some girls were actually crying. After she left, the hall was once again silent. And that was not because the fire had become red. On the contrary, the fire was now colored in 6 colors. Red, blue, indigo, violet, yellow and green. Instead of a single stream of fire, the 6 flames whirled into a small cyclone of now orange flame. From it, a piece of paper fell and Dumbledore caught it. It still had an orange flame on it. It's either me or Xanxus, Suna whispered and the Varia boss nodded. The champion for Vongola is Sawada Tsunayoshi. Dumbledore announced to the amazed hall. As Suna got up in his family's cheers, the rest of the students snapped out of their stare and started a more lively applause than before. As Suna went past Dumbledore who gave him a cheerful smile, Hermione asked Gokudera. How did he know it was either him or Xanxus? Only they have the sky flame. He replied but added, the orange flame, as she was looking confused. Oh, it's quite rare, Reborn said before the whole hall had gone silent as the next champion would be for Hogwarts. In the champion's room, Suna found Krum and Fleur near the fireplace, staring into the fire. Hey, Suna announced his presence. The two turned around and Fleur smiled. So you are the Vongola champion. Somehow I was expecting it, she said. Oh, why is that? Suna smiled. Dumbledore was talking to you quite polite. You had to be someone important, she answered. Thank you. I believe I haven't introduced myself. My name is Sawada Tsunayoshi, Suna said. Fleur Delacour, she answered and held out a delicate hand that Suna shook. Victor Krum, the Bulgarian seeker said as he stepped forward and shook Suna's hand as well. A moment after that, they heard someone behind them and saw Cedric Diggory walking towards them. "Congratulations," Suna greeted. "Thanks." Cedric smiled and they all introduced themselves to him. After that, they waited in silence around the fireplace for the headmasters to come and give them directions. After about a minute, they heard noise and saw Harry hesitantly coming towards them. "What is it?" Fleur asked. "Do they want us to go back in the Great Hall?" Harry didn't answer. He just stared at them blankly. "Harry, did something happen?" Suna asked, realizing something was wrong. But before he could say anything, Ludo Bagman came in and took Harry's arm, dragging him to the other four. "Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce, even though it sounds incredible, the 5th champion in the tournament," he declared, smiling wide. "Oh, what a good joke, Mr. R.R. Bagman." Fleur smiled and threw her long silver blonde hair over her shoulder. "Joke? No, not at all. Harry's name just came out of the Goblet of Fire," Bagman said. The 4 older champions all reacted. While Crumb seemed to be frowning, Cedric looked as amazed as Suna felt. "But there has obviously occurred a mistake. He can't compete, he's too little," Fleur said. "Well, it is amazing indeed. But as you know, those chosen by the goblet are obliged to compete. And considering the age limit was added as a precaution only this year, I don't think he can withdraw from this stage. Harry will have to do his best," he explained, but was interrupted as the doors behind him were opened with force and the 4 headmasters plus Snape, McGonagall and Crouch came inside arguing. "Madame Maxime, they say that this little boy will be competing with us," Fleur said. "What is the meaning of this Dumbledore?" she asked imperiously. "I would want to know as well, Dumbledore," Karkaroff intervened sharply. "I don't remember that hosting school can have 2 champions. Or maybe I didn't read the rules right." "Say impossible," Madame Maxime erupted. "Hogwarts can't have 2 champions, it's very unfair RR. I thought that the age line should prevent younger students from entering." "Dumbledore," Karkaroff said sharply. "It's all Potter's fault." "Karkaroff, don't blame Dumbledore," Snape said with malice. "He's been nothing but trouble ever since he got here." "Thank you, Severus," Dumbledore said in a "shut up" way. "Did you put your name in the goblet?" "Harry," the headmaster asked, looking him in the eye. "No, sir," Harry answered perfectly calm. Science that probably no one believed him. "Did you ask an older student to do it?" Dumbledore continued. "No," Harry said louder. "Oh, but of course he is lying," Madame Maxime said, annoyed. "He couldn't have passed the age line," McGonagall said sharply. "Dumbledore must have made a mistake," Maxime replied, waving his hand. "It's possible," Dumbledore said politely. "Dumbledore, you know there was no mistake," McGonagall erupted. "And you know Potter didn't convince another student to do it." "Yeah, even I couldn't get past the age line," said a voce from behind Suna, and they saw Reborn on the fireplace. "Who is this infant?" Karkaroff asked, annoyed. "My name is Reborn," was the answer, and Karkaroff went stiff. "And if you recognize it, then keep your mouth shut." "That's tight. If Reborn Ho has an eternally infant body couldn't do it, nobody could," McGonagall said quickly. "Mr. Crouch, Mr. Bagman, you're our neutral judges. Don't you agree that there is something amiss?" Karkaroff asked. "Well, the rules say that those whose names are selected are obliged to compete," Bagman said, like the matter was solved. "I insist that my other students can subscribe again. We'll do Annette, her selection until all schools have 2 champions," Karkaroff demanded, angry. "But the goblet's fire just went out and it won't lit until the next tournament," Dumbledore tried to reason. "In which Durmstrang will not compete, I assure you. After all our negotiations, to let this happen. I'm almost determined to leave right now." "Baseless threats, Karkaroff. You can't abandon your champion now. He must compete. They all have to," Moody said, appearing from behind them. "Convenient, isn't it?" "Convenient?" Karkaroff asked. "I'm afraid I don't understand." "Really, it's quite simple. Someone put Potter's name in the goblet knowing that he'll have to compete if chosen." Karkaroff and Madame Maxime started complaining on the motives, Mad Eye saying that they were targeting Harry and Karkaroff doubting Moody's sanity. "At any rate," Reborn interrupted, "Harry must have been subscribed under a 5th school, because it would be impossible to confuse the goblet of fire in tonight's state. Improbable, but not impossible, Snape countered. No, impossible. Beside its usual power, tonight it had the power of the flames from the gondola as a boost. No wizard could affect it, the ninth spoke for the first time. I don't really understand what you mean, but you don't seem too concerned of this event, Karkaroff said, glaring at him. Well, I don't really see why you're worrying. I have complete trust in my champion's abilities. After all, each champion will be on his own. Rather than that, I'm more concerned about young Harry's safety, Timoteo observed. Came from Snape. Karkaroff and Madame Maxime felt insulted, but realized he did have a point. How we go into this situation, I do not know. But I believe we have no choice but to accept that both Cedric and Harry have to compete. Dumbledore resumed. He was countered by Maxime, but as she had no alternatives, they all had to accept it. After that, Crouch stepped out of his trance and announced that the first task was on the 24th of November and will test their courage. He also added that they may only use their wands. After that, they left in groups, Fleur with Madame Maxime, Krum with Karkaroff and Suna with the ninth, Harry and Cedric. So, we're competing against each other, Cedric said with a slight smile as the passes through the now deserted Great Hall. Yeah, I guess, Harry weakly. Tell me though, how did you though? Cedric asked when they reached the corridor. How did you subscribe? I didn't, Cedric. Believe me, Harry answered, looking at him. Right. Then see you around, Cedric said and went through a door on the right. He obviously didn't believe him. Harry stood still, wondering if someone besides Ron and Hermione would believe him. Don't worry, we believe you, the ninth said, and Suna nodded. How come? Harry asked. All Vongola bosses are known to have a great power of insight, Suna explained. It's called hyper-intuition, the ninth confirmed. Besides, I had someone guard the entrance to your common room. No one used it last night, Suna added. So whoever did it is no friend, Harry summarized grimly. On the bright side, no friend of yours is dumb enough to do it, Suna said with a smile. Hey, good point, Harry smiled slightly. Now you should go to your friends, I'm sure they're celebrating. The ninth smiled and Harry left, wishing them good night. I thought things were going too well, Suna cited. Should have known something like this would happen. It always does, the ninth admitted, and they headed to their own party. Chapter 9. Getting an accomplice and building a dome. Needless to say, Xanxus wasn't very pleased that he had lost to Suna again. He was at the fragile border between pissed off and angry when Suna had returned with the ninth. But Suna's mood wasn't very bright either, so he dropped the subject rather quickly. Feeling of superiority or not, Suna was a lot more powerful than him since he had returned from the future. Getting his own box weapon didn't help much either, since the power of the Vongola box was way above that of regular boxes. So, instead of arguing, they began discussing the culprit behind Harry's participation. I've watched over the Gryffindor common room entrance all night. It wasn't Potter. It was someone else, Mukuro assured them. How could you stay there all night? You usually can barely stay 10 minutes. Gokudera observed. Well, this wand is pretty useful. I can stay materialized just by activating it. The Hell Ring provides the power by itself. But it does require some energy to stay hidden, the illusionist admitted. In other words, whoever subscribed him didn't do it with friendly thoughts. Chrome deducted. I have some suspicions on that Karkaroff character. That Professor Moody seemed to have some bad history with him and the guys in Auror, Suna said, lost in thought. Auror? Squallow asked. Dark Wizard Catcher, Mammon said. Tried to catch me once too. Good thing I was in disguise. I don't trust that Snape guy, Gokudera said. Yeah, Snake has that effect on people, Reborn said, suddenly appearing on Chrome's shoulder. However, Dumbledore trusts him, Suna finished with a sigh. Well, he trusted us with the safety of the school, the ninth observed. Yes, he trusts people easily. Like someone else I know. Reborn smiled and Suna avoided his gaze. Well, let's get some sleep, the ninth suggested, and they began to get up. Xanxus, I want a word with you, Reborn said as he walked towards the door. Outside, he added. This request order attracted some curious looks. But Xanxus followed him. So, what do you want? Xanxus. About that stunt you pulled last night. Reborn asked coldly. What stunt? Why didn't accept Suna's room last night? Well, he's the boss and all. Xanxus grinned. Cut the crap. Reborn cut him off annoyed. You noticed I was trying to get them together. Maybe. Xanxus grinned. Maybe I should show you why. It's a bad idea to interfere with my plans. Reborn threatened, pulling out his gun. Xanxus backed away with his face pale. He knew how ruthless the Archibaldino could be. I've put a lot of personal effort in this. Don't get in my way. So you don't care if they don't like each other? I mean, till now, they rarely saw each other. Xanxus tried to get out of the mess. I've had them live in Suna's house for the past 2 months. I even had them stay there alone for a day. Wah, did something happen? Xanxus stared in amazement. 2 pizza delivery firms were obliterated by Hibari. And I put Dino in the hospital. Why? The pizza guys didn't talk. Dino talked too much. Come to think of it, Dino was in the hospital last time I heard from him, Xanxus mumbled. But what do you mean by, talked too much? He told Gokudera that Suna and Chrome were alone at home. So all the idiots went to visit, huh? Xanxus grinned. Yes, now listen to me. You're gonna help me get those 2 together. Is that clear? Reborn threatened. Fine, now get off my back. Get off your back. You didn't pull that stunt yesterday, this wouldn't have happened. Gay. After that, they left the matter alone and went to bed. But the next morning wasn't very pleasant. Almost all of the school believed that Harry put his name in the Goblet of Fire. But unlike the Gryffindors who were happy, the other Houses were angry and offensive against him. Look, it's the great champion. Malfoy said with malice. Shut your mouth, Malfoy. Harry snapped at him. Yeah, leave him be, Suna added, coming to sit next to Harry. What's your problem? Anyway, he's a fake. He sneaked his way into the tournament, another Slytherin said. No, he didn't submit his name. And even if he did, how do you know he's the fake? Suna said. You mean Cedric is a fake? A Hufflepuff asked angry. No, but you can't suspect one and leave the other alone. How do you know the goblet didn't consider him just as worthy as Cedric? Reborn said, and the students fell silent, considering this new possibility. But he still shouldn't be allowed. He's not 17, Draco said, annoyed. Then either someone else subscribed him without his knowledge, or he was good enough to get past that age line which prove him more than worthy. Suna snapped back. Now we would want to eat in silence. He finished and turned to his plate. Thanks, Harry whispered after the crowd dispersed. No problem. I know how it feels like to be forced into something. Suna whispered back. Still, you have your house's support, and I'm sure Hermione and Ron believe you, he added. But noticed the look on his face and asked, they don't? Hermione does, Harry asked edgy. Suna understood the message and didn't insist on the subject. A few days later, the Vongola received permission to set up a training area somewhere near Hagrid's hut. So, how are we gonna do this? Xanxus asked. Hire some company to build it. No, Dumbledore wouldn't allow it. Us. Knowing the location of the castle is already too much, Suna answered, deep in thought. Then what are we gonna do? Mammon asked impatiently. Build it ourselves. Reborn answered simply. Silence. Silence. Yep, he's insane. What else is new? Suna cited. But how? None of us are good at building stuff. We're good at destroying it. Squallow asked, annoyed. I didn't tell you to build a house. All we need are some walls and a roof. The hitman explained. With what? We'll use some trees for the walls. Yeah, and strings to tie them to one another. Xanxus rolled his eyes. No, Suna will bind them in ice. Reborn continued calmly. Wah, but the ice I make is full of sharp areas. If we touch it, we'll get cut. Suna said, worried. We'll use soft flames to melt those areas. But first things first, we need the trees. As tall as you can find them. Squallow and Yamamoto will cut them down. Make sure the cuts are clean. Ryohei, Hibari and Xanxus will carry them back here. Reborn instructed, and they got to work. Xanxus complaining about being treated like the others. Nearby, the 4th year's Gryffindors and Slytherins were having care of magical creatures, and Malfoy was taking advantage of it by badmouthing Harry. But his good mood didn't last long as Hagrid instructed the class to take the blast-ended Scroots for a walk. But while the class was in chaos and Hagrid was trying to comfort Harry for his problems, loud sounds were heard in the forest not far away. "What is that?" some of the students asked as they managed to put their Scroots back in their boxes. "Sounds like someone is cutting down trees," Hermione answered. "Oh, now that I think about it," the Vongola people asked Dumbledore to let them build a training area for themselves. Hagrid remembered. "A training area?" Harry asked, surprised. "Yeah, since the Beauxbatons have their carriage and the Durmstrang has their ship, they also wanted a place to train in privacy." Hagrid explained. "Why couldn't bring something along like the others did? Are that poor?" Draco asked with malice. "No, but Dumbledore said that the mansion their headmaster wanted to bring was too big," Hagrid answered, leaving Malfoy with his mouth open. "Can we go see what they're doing?" Harry asked, curious. "Sure, I'm interested too. We're done for today, anyway," Hagrid answered and turned towards the class. "Okay, you're dismissed so you can head for the castle. But if you want to go check what's going on in the forest, you'll have to stick close to me." Almost all of them decided to come along as they knew little about the foreign wizards. As they reached the area with noise, they saw Squallow and Yamamoto surrounded by very thick and tall trees with swords in their hands. "What are they doing?" Harry whispered to Hagrid, not wanting to disturb the two swordsmen. "No idea. Let's wait and see," Hagrid whispered back. All of the fourth years remained silent as they watched the two. They noticed that while Yamamoto held his sword in his right hand, Squallow had it attached to his left. Suddenly, a blue flame erupted from their hands and covered the blade of their swords. Then they took a stance, back to back. Shigur-Su and Ryu 7th form, Shibuki aim. They both called out, slashing once around them with their swords. After that, they extinguished the blue flames and stood still. After another 3 seconds, something happened. Over a dozen trees around them started moving and fell down, none of them touching them. "That should be the last of them," Yamamoto smiled. "Yeah, about time. I don't even want to know what my subordinated would think if they saw me cut down trees." Squallow mumbled. "Probably the same they would think about Xanxus carrying them." Yamamoto grinned. "What's the big deal anyway? My sword is for cutting people, not trees," Squallow said, annoyed. "Not today," Yamamoto grinned. "Wanna bet?" Squallow threatened, raising his sword. Now, Yamamoto calmed him down. "Do you want Xanxus or Hibari to find out?" "Find out what?" Hibari's voice was heard and they saw him with Xanxus and Ryohei coming towards them. "Oh, nothing. These are the last trees we need," Yamamoto said quickly. "Fine, we'll take care of them. But before that," Xanxus turned towards some tall bushes. "The ones hiding over there should tell us what they want." "Huh." Squallow turned towards the appointed spot. "Oh, we didn't mean to disturb you," Hagrid said, taking a step forward and revealing himself. "We were just having class nearby and came to see what the noise was coming from." "Oh, sorry, we didn't want to disrupt your class," Yamamoto apologized. "Don't worry about it, we were done anyway," Hagrid assured him. "Want me to give ya a hand?" he offered. "Sure, we were getting a little tired by ourselves." Ryohei accepted. "Let's get this over with," Hibari muttered. "Hoi-I. You brats don't get in our way," Squallow said as he saw the students behind Hagrid. "Calm down, Shark," Xanxus said as he took out his box weapon. "Yeah, stop wasting my time," Hibari added as he and Ryohei took out their own boxes. They lit the flames of their rings and released the animals inside their boxes. From Ryohei's came out a kangaroo that had some yellow flame on it, from Hibari's came out a hedgehog with diamond-like spikes and violet flames, and from Xanxus's came out a lion that had orange flames. Like the Liger Tempesta de Cielo his future self had, this was a Leone di Cielo. "What the hell are those? Did those animals came out of those small boxes?" Draco yelled, terrified, and backed away. "Well, I could tell you. But then I'll have to kill ya to keep the secret," Squallow grinned. "Let's get this over with," Hibari said, and the hedgehog turned into a ball with spikes and multiplied until there were a dozen. Then, the spiked balls went under a fallen tree and started lifting it into the air. When it was at shoulder height, Hibari went and gave his hedgehogs a hand and then left in the am. AZED glares the Hogwarts students and Hagrid were giving him. As if nothing had happened, Xanxus and his lion lifted another tree while Riohei and Garyu did the same. Remembering he had offered help, Hagrid lifted a tree himself and followed their lead. After exchanging a few glances, the students followed them with Harry and Hermione in the lead and Ron following close. When they got out of the forest, they saw something that resembled a lumber factory. Hundreds of trees were stored in the same place and people were working with them. By people, I mean Suna and Gokudera, who were getting rid of the branches and the leaves of the trees by burning them with their weapons. This is the last batch, Sawada, Ryohei announced as the group hurried back into the forest to get the last trees. What are you guys doing with all these trees? Harry asked, staring at them. Do you want to cut down the entire forest? Hermione asked, annoyed. We need them to build our training area, Reborn responded, looking over some plans. Don't worry, we're having Ryohei regrow them. You won't even notice which ones we cut, Suna assured her. Need a hand with these? Harry asked, looking at the remaining trees. Nah, we'll handle it. You guys stay back so you won't get hurt, Gokudera said, turning his attention to his task. Suna went into his hyper mode by activating his magic tool and then he put on his gloves. The students stared at him and backed away when they saw the sky flames on his gloves and forehead. But what surprised them the most were his now orange eyes and his calm attitude. He placed his hands on the tree and the orange flames quickly covered the tree and burned the branches off, leaving the trunk behind. But even though the branches were detached from the tree, they were still getting in the way by using their workspace. So Gokudera used the weapon on his left arms. He placed a stick-like object in it as that dynamite. Harry and Hermione thought, scared, and then fired a stream of red fire at the leftovers, leaving almost nothing behind. They continued the process until there were no more trees with branches left, including the ones Hibari, Hagrid and Xanxus brought back. As they all took a short break, Ryohei returned from the forest informing them he had finished regrowing the trees. All right, back to work, Reborn told them as he approached. I spoke with the 9th and we decided to have a foundation to the building after all. I am not digging any holes, Hibari warned them. No need for holes. We'll just enroot the trees we use as the floor, the hitman explained. I'm okay with it, but I need to rest for a while, Ryohei told him, but Reborn was shaking his head. I'll do it myself. The roots have to grow in a certain pattern and it's too hard for you, Reborn said, taking out his wand and lit a sun flame at its tip. He waves the golden wand and about 50 trees started flying towards an open area and landed, forming a round shape, almost like a disc. He then went over to them and placed the tip of his wand on a trunk. All of the trunks were gradually covered in sun, flames started growing. But instead of growing branches and leaves, they grew numerous roots that dug into the ground and filled any open spaces in the structure. In less than a minute, the trunks had almost merged, forming a flat floor. Awesome! Some of the students cheered and a round of applause followed. Thank you. Reborn smiled and then turned to the Vongola and explained in detail what must be done next. After a few minutes, they scattered around and on the wooden platform. Mammon and Reborn lit their wands and made several trees fly in a line vertically at the edge of the platform. A now visible Mukuro made some lotus plants appear out of nowhere and tie the tree trunks together, forming a wall. After 20 trees were tied this way, Chrome hit the ground near the trunks with the tilt of her trident, making it freeze the trunks in place so that Reborn and Mammon can release their control. Mukuro, however, maintained the binding flowers. The process continued until there was only enough space for a person to get through in the wall that surrounded the round platform. At that point, Suna, Hibari and Xanxus joined Mukuro on the platform while the others remained outside. The entrance was covered and the process continued on the upper level, at the top of the first wall, but leaving large spaces regularly between the lower and upper walls. Also, the upper wall was slightly tilted inwards, and the pattern continued with the next row of trunks and the ones after it until there was only a 10 meters in diameter open space at the top of the building. A dome, Hermione whispered. Look at the size of it. And we came here a little over half-hour ago, Harry added. But from the looks of it, that guy with the trident is holding the tree trunks still with his flowers. They need a more permanent solution, Hermione said, lost in thought. I think we're about to see it. They're backing away from the dome, Harry observed. True enough, the Vongola were backing away from the structure. And the reason was seen rather quickly. Ice started spreading from inside the dome, coming out from the open spaces they left and encasing the whole thing in ice. How are they going to get out of there? Harry asked. They'll probably fly out from the top, Hermione suggested. But as she was talking, the top of the dome was also covered with ice. Okay. Maybe they'll dig their way out, Harry said. But they said they didn't need any holes. And they would have made them from the start. That's just common sense, Hermione replied. Then, what's that sound? Harry asked, covering his ears. An awful screech was being heard, apparently from inside the dome. But after a few seconds it stopped, only to be replaced by the terrifying roar of a lion. They immediately noticed the result. That portion near the ground has turned to stone, Harry said out loud. But how could it have something to do with those sounds? Hermione wondered. But before they could theorize on the phenomenon, an explosion occurred in the petrified portion of the wall. When the dust had cleared up, they saw a perfectly round hole in the wall, large enough for even Hagrid to pass through without even lowering his head. The wall had returned to its frozen state as the petrification lost effect. Through it came Hibari, Xanxus and Suna, all of them looking quite exhausted. The first one to speak was Suna. We need an hour break, he said. Agreed. Let's head for the castle. Lunch is almost over, Reborn said, and the students realized how hungry they actually were. The entire group, students and guests, headed for the castle to have a well-earned meal. I hope you liked this chapter. Some of the reviewers said that I shouldn't be revealing the secret techniques the Vongola use. So, besides the part with the sword techniques, everything was done in an apparent wizard manner. I tried to think of a way to avoid the using of the box weapons in front of the students, but as strong as the Vongola are physically, it would take all of them to carry one of those huge trees. But they didn't use any of the special abilities out in the open, so the animal boxes can be considered just summoned animals from a third person's view. And as always, please review Chapter 10. Chapter 10. The Waiting of the Wands and the Vongola X Dome. The news about the Vongola's new training area spread rather quickly. By the time lunch was over half of the school knew and wanted to see it. The only ones that seemed slightly displeased were Karkaroff and Madame Maxime, but it was simply because the Vongola were showing off more than them. Even Snape, who now hated Reborn, was a little intrigued. Well, could you blame them? You practically built that huge dome from scratch in just a few hours. Harry rolled his eyes when Suna complained about all the attention the Vongola were attracting. We should go to class now. We have potions with Snape and he hates latecomers, Hermione reminded, and the Gryffindors left non-enthusiastically. Can Snape's classes really be that awful? Suna asked out loud. Let's go and find out then, Reborn grinned. But we're not students here. Suna stared at him. Dumbledore said he liked the idea. And Snape already knows from the look on his face, Reborn said as he glanced at the staff table to see a rather grim-looking potions master. Reborn, are you sure about this? Don't we need to finish our dome? Suna tried to talk him out of it. You're done. The others can handle the ice sculptures. Chrome and Mukuro too. They've used too much energy as well. They can join us as well, Reborn assured him. As much as I would like to see the head of Slytherin in pain, I must retire for now, Mukuro said as he faded away. I'll come, Suna, Chrome said with a smile. I'll come too, 10th. Gokudera said immediately. You barely did anything. You'll do most of the work. Xanxus shot him down. With no further ado, Suna, Kerm and Reborn headed for the dungeons. There they found Harry and Draco throwing curses at each other. But spells collided and hit the bystanders. One made Hermione's front teeth grow uncontrollably and the other gave Goyle ugly acne. What is the meaning of this? Snape asked coldly as he appeared from behind the Vongola. The Slytherins hurried to answer, but Reborn cut them off as he landed on Draco's head. Just an unfortunate accident, the Hitman said, silencing the class. Mr. Potter and Malfoy, why dropped their wands and those fired some leftover spells? Fine, Snape sneered. Goyle and Granger head for the infirmary. Granger can stay, I'll heal her, Reborn said as he took out his wand. Do you have a healer degree? Snape raised his brow. I have a healer degree, teacher degree, physician degree, sniper degree. Reborn trailed off and then waved his wand and pointed it at Hermione. Teeth retracted to her mouth, and when she removed her hand they saw normal-looking teeth. Now, I believe Dumbledore informed you of our presence in today's class, right, Snake? Reborn grinned. SNA. Pay gritted his teeth and muttered, enter. The class and guests went inside the classroom. And while Suna and Chrome took the same table as Harry and Hermione, Reborn created a small black armchair on Snape's desk. Still not getting along, Suna whispered to Harry as he glanced at Ron, who was sharing a table with Dean and Seamus. Hermione shook her head sadly and Harry tried to act indifferent. The class was like usual. Snape was walking among the cauldrons. Neville had already ruined his potion and Hermione's was as perfect as it could get. Like on cue, Snape appeared above Harry's cauldron and started telling him his potion was useless and that fame isn't everything. As the professor was talking, Suna glanced at Reborn and saw in horror that he had pulled out a gun and was adding a silencer. He then loaded a blue bullet and shot it in Harry's cauldron. The smoke stopped and the potion became identical to Hermione's. What did you do? Snape asked as he was staring at the cauldron. I was right in front of you. What could I have done? Harry asked, annoyed. Oh, I haven't seen a self-alchemic potion in a while. Reborn said as he approached the cauldron. Surely a fluke, but impressive none the less. He grinned. But before Snape could make any comment, the door opened and Colin Creevey came in. Excuse me, sir, Professor Dumbledore needs all the champions upstairs, he said. Oh, that must mean that Ollivander is here. Harry, Suna, Chrome too, I'll take you there. Reborn said and then guided them out of the classroom, completely ignoring Snape. What's this about? Harry asked as they reached the stairs. They need to see if your wands are working properly, since that's what you'll be using the most in your trials. Reborn answered. They said something about photos to me. Colin said shyly. Great, more publicity. Just what I need, Harry said sarcastically and making Chrome giggle and Suna to smile. Be thankful you're not popular as a target for assassinations like I am, the former said. Wah, Colin asked. Nothing. You can go now, I'll guide them. Reborn dismissed him. Okay. Good luck, Harry, Colin said as he left. As the group got to the specified room, they saw Cedric coming from the other end of the corridor. Hi, do you know what this is about? Cedric asked. The weighting of the wands ceremony. They need to check if out wands work properly. Suna answered as he opened the door. There you are. We've been waiting for you. Was heard and Ludo Bagman appeared in sight with a wide smile. Don't worry, this is just, we know. Suna cut him off. Checking our wands and taking some pictures, right? Harry added. Yes. This over here is Rita Skeeter, he added. She's doing a small piece on the tournament for the Daily Prophet. Ellipsis quote. Maybe not that small, Ludo, said Rita Skeeter, her eyes on Harry and Suna. I wonder if I can have a talk with Harry and Suna, being either the youngest champion or the most mysterious one, she asked. That would be a great idea, Bagman said. If the boys agreed, of course. I'd rather remain a mystery, Suna said, taking a step back. How about you, Harry? Bagman turned to the Gryffindor expectantly. He began, but Rita Skeeter suddenly took his hand. Lovely. Let's find a more peaceful place, she said and almost dragged him out the door. Suna, me and Chrome will watch from the sidelines. You and Cedric should go over to the other two, Reborn suggested, and Chrome nodded and followed the hitman. Suna nodded and went to chat with Fleur and Crumb. Or more accurate, with Fleur. Apparently, Victor Crumb was less talkative than he seemed. B barely nodded when Suna said hello and then went to the window and stared outside. Fleur, on the other hand, was happy she had someone to talk to. Hi, I heard that the wandmaker RR who will inspect war wands is quite famous, she said enthusiastically. Yes, the Ollivanders have been making wands for over 2,000 years, Cedric answered with a smile. Oh, come on, he doesn't look that old, Suna said with a smile, and the other two burst out laughing. I wonder what they're talking about, Chrome said as she threw Fleur a sharp look. Jealous. Reborn grinned and Chrome responded with a blush. Then you should make a move on him, he added more seriously. You like him, right? Chrome blushed even more but still said nothing. Not anything too much. Just confess, Reborn said. That final word almost made steam rush out of her ears. She staggered and sat down at the nearest desk. Reborn decided that this strategy won't work. No matter how much she had changed recently, Chrome was still too shy. Right then, the door opened and the headmasters entered with Ollivander and Crouch. Good day. Dumbledore smiled while looking around and then raised a brow. Where is Harry? Hasn't he arrived? Rita Skeeter already kidnapped him, Reborn smirked. That was quick, Dumbledore cited. I'll be right back, he added and left the room. But the others have just taken their seats when he returned with Harry. Rita. Now that all the champions are here, we may begin. Dumbledore announced as he took his seat. Mademoiselle Delacour, could we have you first, please? Ollivander said as he stepped into the empty space in the middle of the room. Fleur advanced and gave him her wand. Ollivander examined it carefully, checking its flexibility. Yes, he said quietly. 9.5 inches, inflexible, rosewood, and containing. Dear me, he said. A hire for Avila. Fleur said. My grandmother's. Is her name Selena by any chance? Reborn asked Fleur. Yes, that is her name. She answered surprised. Do you know Hare? Yes, we have been acquainted a long time ago. Ask her if she remembers Venice when you give her my regards, will you? The hitman smiled. Of course, Mr. R.R. Reborn, Fleur answered with a smile of her own. I see, Ollivander said and then created a bunch of flowers that he gave to Fleur along with the wand, declaring it in good condition. Next was Victor Crumb. He strode to the wandmaker and put his hands in his pocket after he gave him his wand. It proved to be a Grigorovich C. Reation that contained dragon heartstring. Ollivander created a swarm of small birds that flew out the window. Mr. Diggory, you next, Ollivander said and then smiled when the wand turned out to be one of his own creations. It contained hair from a particularly fine male unicorn. A stream of silver smoke was created with it before it was handed back to its owner. Mr. Potter, if you please, he called out and his eyes twinkled when he saw Harry's wand. It was 1pf his own as well, but he also knew the hidden relation of the phoenix feather it contained. But luckily for Harry, he chose not to reveal that aspect. And last but not least, Vongola 10th, Ollivander smiled as Suna advanced. Sawada Tsunayushi will do, Suna said returning the smile. For now, anyway, Ollivander said. Your wand if you please. Just a moment, Suna said and took his storage box out of his pocket. Most of the observers raised a brow as they couldn't understand the meaning of his actions. They then flinched when Suna raised his right fist and lit the sky flame of his Vongola ring. He then inserted the flame in the slot on the box and it opened, revealing his magic activation tool. What was that? Ollivander asked as he looked at the box. Just a storage box. Only I can open it, Suna answered. Quite inefficient, Karkaroff commented. If there was an emergency you wouldn't have time to do all that. Oh, Tsunayoshi-kun is more than capable even without his wand, the ninth smiled. Yes, well, it's in perfect condition, but no surprise there. I only made it a few months ago, Ollivander said as he inspected it. What's with that odd shape? Bagman asked looking at the finger-like object. This model of wands was created especially for the Vongola to comply with their unique skills, Ollivander said. This one contains an extremely rare and odd core, a feather from a hybrid of phoenix and frost lion. I thought it was only a myth. Madame Maxime gasped. So did I before it as delivered to me along with the other potential cores, Ollivander began. Less talking, more testing, Reborn cut him off and Suna understood why. His wand was suspicious enough even without the mafia details. Yes, well that can only be done by Mr. Sawada, Ollivander said as he handed him the magic tool. The ring that I'm sure you've noticed is also part of the wand, the old man said as Suna put it on. He then lit his flame and the transformation occurred almost instantly, covering his skin with the gold and silver glove. Impressive. You managed to cover both hands. I thought it would take you more than a year to achieve that, Ollivander said as he looked at the gloves. It gets even better with his X-gloves, Reborn grinned, but he isn't allowed to use it in the first task so this will do for now. Fantastic. I've never seen anything like it. Ludo Bagman said while clapping his hands. Truly unique, Madame Maxime admitted. Just for show if you ask me. Karkaroff said. And what's with the orange eyes and the flame on the forehead? The flame on my forehead is just an extension of the flame on my arm, Suna said, raising his sleeves up to his shoulder to reveal the gloves even more. What flame? I don't see any, Karkaroff began. But he went silent when the gloves were completely covered in pure sky flames. They were even on his back under his clothes that seemed to ignore the heat. C'est magnifique, Fleur said in French as he stared at the sight before her. Unreal. You didn't do that this morning when building the dome, Harry said. I didn't have to. Now, Professor Karkaroff, allow me to give you a demonstration. What do you want me to use? Fire or ice? Suna asked. Ice, Karkaroff answered immediately. Very well, Suna said, extinguishing most of his flames and opened the window that was to his left. There's nobody in sight. Perfect, he added as stretched his arms out the window. Glacio, he said as the hands touched and a bright light appeared. There, have a look, Suna said as he turned around, taking off his magic tool. The entire audience got up and went to the windows. Outside on the lawn, there were numerous ice lances embedded in the ground. From the height they were looking from, the drawing was obvious, the Vongola emblem with the X letter under it. Almost everyone was speechless. Nice one, Suna, Reborn grinned. Indeed. But please remove them soon. Tsunayoshi-kun. We don't want to damage the lawn, the ninth said. No problem, Suna said and then chanted, shatter. While snapping his fingers, the ice indeed shattered, leaving behind a glimmering mist. That would be all, Mr. Sawada, Ollivander said. Indeed, you can all go back to class, Dumbledore began, but Rita Skeeter interfered. Not so fast. The pictures, Dumbledore, the pictures, she said as her cameraman stepped forward. Yes, how could I forget? Dumbledore said sarcastically. They took group pictures first. The champions, the headmasters, all of them together. After that, Rita insisted on some individual pictures with the champions, and the press finally left. I just found out the other name for press, Harry said weakly. Oh, you did, Reborn said with a grin. Yes, I did. Evil, Harry muttered, and even Crumb showed a smile. Oh, I just realized how late it is, Suna said as he looked at his watch. Yeah, they should have finished it by now, Reborn agreed. Finished? What is this about? Ludo Bagman asked. Well, we asked permission from Albus to build a training area since we, the Vongola, didn't bring one, the ninth answered. Yes, they started building it this morning. But did you really finish it? Dumbledore asked. Well, the main structure was already done by lunch. All was left to do was to make some last adjustments to the walls. Reborn said. Well, as promised, you're all invited to have a look, the ninth said, and everyone agreed, curious. As soon as they left the castle, the ice-covered cum came into sight, glinting in the sunset. When they got closer, Suna noticed that the sharp icicles were mostly gone, leaving a smooth wall. The only places they were left were the illumination spots, the portions of wall that were entirely of ice so that light can enter the building. And in the smooth portions of the wall were visible Mukuro's numerous lotus flowers. Well, my flowers look better than I expect. Mukuro said as he materialized himself behind Chrome. Maintaining my illusions with negative energy, truly an impressive technique you have, Vongola, he told Suna. Thanks, Suna smiled. Dumbly. Did you say they built this since this morning and it was mostly done by lunch? Madame Maxime asked. Yes, Dumbledore answered as he was looking at the structure, rather impressed himself. Entrance is to the left, Reborn said, and they walked in that direction. When they reached the door, they saw it was placed in the same place Xanxus blew a hole. It was a little taller than Madame Maxime and was round in shape. The door itself was actually an iris made of a material that looked strangely familiar to Suna. It was golden and silver, the colors converging in the middle. Reborn. This door, Suna began. It looks like the same material I made your wands from, Ollivander added. Yep, that's the one. Straight from my partner Leon, Reborn confirmed as he petted the chameleon. Poor Leon, Chrome said compassionately. Reborn, This could be considered animal abuse in some countries, you know, Suna said reproachfully. Ollivander opened his mouth to ask for an explanation, but Ecid against it after a second thought. Since you know what it's made from, you can guess how to open it, Reborn said, and Suna nodded. He placed his right hand on the door and lit his ring. The door was instantly covered in orange flames. Watch out, you'll get burned, Cedric said, worried. I won't be hurt by the flame of my own will, Suna said as he turned towards him smiling. The iris opened, revealing a rather dark chamber. As the light from outside was fading. Welcome back, 10th, 9th. Goguder greeted as the group entered. We were waiting for you to do the inauguration, Suna, Yamato added. The Vongola were gathered in the middle of the room, talking, but fell silent when they saw that they had company. Good, we can do the ceremony now, Reborn agreed. Gokudera, like I told you earlier. You'll provide the thunder flames as well since Lambo isn't here. No problem, I had enough time to rest and recover my energy, the Storm Guardian assured him. Then, you may begin, Hitman said, and the 6 guardians approached the exact center of the room and saw the hexagonal pedestal that 7 spikes at the top, 6 pointing from the 6 corners towards the wall and 1 in the middle pointing straight up. Under the base of each spike, there was a small slot. There they inserted their flamed rings. The spikes began to glow as they gradually accumulated the flames. When their glow finally reached the peak, the guardians backed away quickly, as they knew that the quantity of flame accumulated was dangerous. Suddenly, streams of flame erupted from the spikes, hitting the walls and ceiling. The stream was maintained for about 10 seconds, and when it stopped, 7 burning crests were illuminating brightly the humongous dome. Red flames for storm, green for thunder, yellow for sun, violet for cloud, indigo for mist, blue for rain, and orange sky flames for the Vongola crest. The dome was now revealed in all its beauty. Unlike the outside, the wall was not just smoother with icicles. It smooth only to the height of 3 meters. From there upwards the wall was decorated with flame-like patterns that seemed real as they were reflecting the light from the flames. This is awesome, Harry said bluntly, and everyone else agreed completely with his statement. They built this from scratch in one day. Bagman asked with his mouth dry. If they had a week they could have built a castle more impressive than Hogwarts, Dumbledore said as he looked at the derailed carvings. I've never seen anything like it, Krum said, and everyone stared at him for a few seconds before returning their gazes to the dome. He had not been heard speaking in public since he arrived at Hogwarts. But it seems to take a lot of power to illuminate, Karkaroff said as he was determined to find a flaw. No, the flames are kept burning just as long as there is someone inside. And only when their light is required. In the meantime, the flames are stored in the 7 battery boxes that have been embedded in the pillar. Reborn answered. But still, so many decorations in ice, wasn't this supposed to be a training area? He insisted. Yes, but this is no ordinary ice. Try throwing a spell at the wall, Suna suggested. Without hesitation, Karkaroff pointed his wand at the nearest iced part of the dome and chanted, Reducto. But to his surprise, the wall wasn't destroyed, and the red energy of the spell seemed to be absorbed by the wall and guided to the storm crest. What happened? Cedric asked, surprised. This ice is a variation of my personal technique. Rather than Taken the full power of an energy attack in one place, it can channel the energy towards previously designated areas of the ice. And since that was a destructive spell, it was guided to the storm crest and absorbed by it. Suna explained calmly. Only one spell could directly damage the wall, but I doubt any of you would want to cast as, Reborn said, and they all knew he meant the killing curse. Still, unlike spells, our techniques do a lot more damage, Xanxus grinned. So this place will probably need daily repairs anyway. About this place, we should give it a name, Chrome said as the entire group reached the door and the flames from the crests were drawn into the battery boxes. We already did, Yamamoto smiled and pointed to the portion of wall above the door. There was carved the Vongola crest with a big X under it. It's called the Vongola X Dome, Reborn said with a wide smile. I hope you like this chapter. Please review. Chapter 11. Chapter 11. The accident. Add the thank you The Vogel X Dome was the subject of discussions for the Hogwarts students for the next week. But, to their deep disappointment, nobody except the Vongola was allowed to enter after the instauration ceremony. But one of the reasons was obvious, as explosions resonated all the way to the castle. The students that went past the dome on their way to herbology usually saw large holes in the round wall and wondered in awe at what could have made them. On a day Harry was heading back from a class with Hagrid, the greatest explosion ever occurred. The roof of the dome exploded and a huge stream of orange flames rushed upwards. "Wow, it looks like a volcano," Harry said and stared at the scene. "What are they doing in there?" "Fighting dragons," Hermione asked outraged. "Let's go have a look." "They could be hurt," Harry suggested, and the two rushed to the scene. Close to the dome, the Vongola were gathered around two people who were laying on the grass. Namely Xanxus and Squallow, who were screaming their hearts out in spite of their injuries. Squallow's left hand was missing and both of them were covered in burns. "What the hell was that, Sawada?" Xanxus asked. "You trying to kill us, you bastard?" Squallow added. "Shut up, you're making a scene," Reborn said, and they stopped yelling. "What was that, Sawada?" Xanxus insisted. "Well, how should I put this? When we were sent to the future, I was the only fighter who didn't have a box at first. And for that reason I was forced to go through the tradition trial and unlock the VR version of my X-gloves," Suna explained. "And that's why the future Hibari pounded him for a week. To make him use his weapon to attack." Reborn smirked. "Must have felt good," Hibari grinned. "Hold on, just now, you weren't using your gloves. You were using your magic tool," Squallow remarked. "Yeah, nor did I have my contact lens on. That's why it was a little wild," Suna admitted. "You should see him with both. The power of the X-burner is increased tenfold." Mukuro grinned. "What, it can get even more powerful?" Harry couldn't help but yell and reveal his and Hermione's presence nearby. Not that they were hiding. "Yes, it can. But what are you guys doing here?" Reborn raised a brow. "We saw the explosion and we came to see if there are people injured," Hermione said, and then gasped when she saw Squallow's left arm. "My God, your arm." "Stop your whinnying," Mammon said. "It's an artificial hand. How did you lose it in the first place?" Harry asked as he approached the group. "I cut it off," Squallow said bluntly, "and it isn't your damn business, sorry." "Shouldn't you go to hospital wing?" Harry said. "Yeah, could you show us the way?" Suna asked as he pulled Xanxus up and gave him some support. "10th, you don't have to do that," Gokudera said. "It's all right, Gokudera-ku," Suna began but collapsed along with Xanxus. "Like hell it is. He's more injured than the other two together," Reborn muttered as everyone rushed to his side. "He's unconscious," Chrome said worried. "Let me have a look," Reborn said and raised Suna's shirt. In the right part of his abdomen there was a hole all the way to his back. It was filled and covered in ice. "Thought so," Reborn said grimly. "Boss," Gokudera cried out. "How did he get injured?" Squallow asked, staring at the wound. "He put a shield around the two of you right before the explosion," Mammon said. "Let's get him to a doctor quickly," Yamamoto said worried. "No need to rush. He sealed off the wound in stasis. And no vital organs were hit, either." Reborn calmed them down. "Still, we should take him to the hospital wing," Hibari said rather bored. "You go ahead, I'll guard this place." "Very well. Yamamoto will help Squallow, Ryohei will help Xanxus, Gokudera and Mukuro will carry Suna on this stretcher," Reborn said as it appeared at a wave of his wand. "Viper, you go tell the nurse to prepare 3 beds. "What about me?" Chrome asked. "I need you to hold this oxygen mask on his face along the way," the hitman said as he summoned it from the dome. He looked at her worried face and added, "Chrome, don't worry. He's not in any life-threatening danger." Quote, "Yes, I understand that. Now let's get him healed," she said, still worried. Without another word, they picked up the injured and then they looked expectantly at Harry and Hermione, who snapped out of their daze and guided them to the castle. Since it was lunchtime, most students were on the corridors, heading for the Great Hall. As the Vongola were climbing the marble stairs to the first floor, they came face to face with Draco, Crabe and Goyle. The three stopped walking and looked at Suna's unconscious form and grinned. Move it, Malfoy, Harry said as they got closer. Now why would I do that? The Slytherin asked evilly. Are you blind? The boss is injured, Gokudera said annoyed. Move, make me. Malfoy grinned wider. Without a word, Chrome pulled the hilt of her trident from her bag and knocked Draco off the stairs in one hit. Then, like nothing had happened, she retook her position at Suna's side. Crabbe and Goyle stared at her for a second and then moved aside. After the group went past them, Rome noticed that the others were looking at her rather surprised. What? She snapped at them. He asked for it. Remind me not to get on your bad side, Gokudera muttered as they reached the infirmary. What's wrong with you people? He hasn't had any of the tasks yet and he still gets himself injured like this. Madame Pomfrey said annoyed. We just had a little accident, Reborn said as he jumped on Suna's bed. Everyone except the injured people, get out, Madame Pomfrey said as she took a potion and approached Suna. Yes, and you can join them, Reborn dismissed her. I beg your pardon, she asked, staring at the hitman. I don't need your help. You'll just get in the way. Get out, the hitman said, not even looking at her. How dare you, Madame Pomfrey yelled as Dumbledore and the Ninth entered the room. What's wrong, Poppy? Why are you yelling? Dumbledore asked. He just told me to get out, the healer said, scandalized, and pointed towards Reborn was helping Chrome remove Suna's shirt. Well, that's sudden, Dumbledore blinked. Why is that? He asked the hitman. I'm 100% sure she never encountered a wound like this before. She won't even be able to remove the ice. Reborn answered and revealed the wound, making the healer gasp. And besides, my healing method is more efficient, he added. Very well. Everyone except Reborn and the three injured students must leave the room. Dumbledore agreed as he had recognized the ice. I'll need some help from Chrome and Mukuro. They already know what I'm going to do, Reborn said. They do? Gokudera asked, suspicious. Yes, if they want to, they'll talk about it later. Now everybody else out, Reborn said, losing his patience. Fine, Madame Pomfrey snapped back and left fist, quickly followed by the others. You two lie down on your beds and draw your curtains, Reborn instructed Xanxus and Squallow, who obeyed quickly. Let's make this area more private, shall we? Mukuro asked and put on his magic tool at Reborn's nod. At a snap of his fingers, the area around Suna's bed was hidden in a dark veil, no sound passing through it either way. Let's hurry, some of his vitals were damaged, Chrome said, putting on her magic tool as well. I know, but having the others panic wouldn't have been a good idea. I was sure you noticed, anyway, Reborn said as he drew his wand and placed the flame tip on the ice. Now, you know he drill. Mukuro creates the missing parts of the organs with illusions as I melt the ice with sun flames. Chrome, I need you to create the skin with your real illusions to keep the air out. We don't him getting an infection, the hitman instructed, and the two illusionists nodded and took their positions. Melting the ice was done slowly, so that Mukuro and Chrome would have time to create their illusions. Also, the power of the sun flames regenerated the edges of the organs and allowed the illusions to connect better. Now comes the hard part, Reborn cited and approached Suna's head and place. Aced the tip of his wand on his forehead and chanted, Enervate. What happened? Suna mumbled as he opened his eyes. Suna, Chrome exclaimed as she hugged him. You almost got yourself killed, that's what happened. Reborn cited, some of your vital organs were damaged. If you wouldn't have sealed them, you would have died. Mukuro added. Then, Suna began and lowered his eyes to the invisible wound and then whispered, Illusions. Yes, but I'll heal you right away. Only 4 organs were damaged, so it won't take long. Also, unlike in Chrome's case, the wounds are open, so it will be easier to regenerate. Reborn said. However, Suna smiled weakly. It will be more painful since nobody will be able to absorb part of the damage like you did for Chrome with your new gloves, Reborn said and cited, honestly. A 0-point breakthrough that absorbs damage from others and converts it to pain. That really is like you. Oh well, let's get this over with, Suna smiled. And the healing process began, Reborn channeling his sun flames in Suna's body through the wound. It took 5 minutes and Suna didn't make any sign that betrayed pain, as he kept his eyes closed the entire time. When the process ended, he looked in Chrome's worried eyes and smiled before losing consciousness. He'll be here for the night. Reborn said. I'll be here with him, Chrome said as she wiped Suna's forehead. I'll heal the other two so they can leave. Reborn smiled. 3 minutes later, Reborn, Mukuro, Xanxus and Squalo stepped out of the room and were assaulted by the Vongola, several Hogwarts teachers and students. He's fine now. We healed him completely, including his vitals, Reborn assured them. He survived even after his vitals were hit. Hermione asked with her eyes wide. Remember the ice? That acted like a seal. Mukuro said. But Reborn-san, you told us that the vitals were undamaged. Gokudera complained. I lied, Reborn said simply as he walked away. He'll spend the night here. Chrome will watch over him. Let's go eat. He ordered and the others hesitated before they followed while Madame Pomfrey sighed and walked through the white doors. So, tell us Mukuro, how did you and Chrome know what the kid was going to do? Yamamoto inquired. Oh, he used the same technique to restore Chrome's organs, the illusionist answered casually and Yamamoto nodded and turned away. Then, the Vongola demanded as they looked from Mukuro to Reborn and back at Mukuro. How? Weren't Chrome's organs made from your illusions? Gokudera asked. Not entirely. Only the damaged parts, Mukuro said. No wonder you can use that much power now, Mammon said. Organs made from illusions, that sounds impossible. Dumbledore said. I remember all my past lives and passing through the 6 paths of samsara. I don't know the meaning of the word, Mukuro said as he disappeared in an indigo mist. Mukuro's path of hell is the most powerful tool for illusions, Reborn said as the group entered the Great Hall. Dumbledore was now wondering if the Vongola were really safe to have around. Meanwhile, back in the hospital wing, Chrome was remembering the day she recovered her organs. Ohm had just awakened after the operation. She was alone in her room but she heard some voices at the door. Good work, Vongola. You have my thanks. Mukuro was heard. Oh, I didn't do much. Suna's rather weak voice was heard. Oh, of course. You just took almost 95% of the pain, Reborn said ironically. At this, Chrome widened her eyes, now completely awake. Hey, was it that obvious? Suna laughed weakly. I would rather die than let her go through such pain, Suna said warmly before a thud was heard as he fell to the floor. If he wasn't constantly using his 0-point breakthrough cuss, Tom and thus increasing his flame capacity, he would have fainted in the first minute. Reborn said. And yet he lasted the whole hour, Mukuro said amused. Chrome was staring into space in tease. Una's direction with a blush on her face. She didn't even notice when Suna opened his eyes and looked at her amused. He studied her face and blushed as well. Eventually, she snapped out of daze and noticed Suna. They both blushed even more and looked away. Chrome remembered Reborn words and made her decision. She gathered her courage and leaned towards Suna. Nay, Suna, she began, I realized I never thanked you properly for helping me bear the pain back then. I was glad to do it, Suna answered, his heart beating faster as her face drew closer to his. Thank you, Suna, she whispered and placed her lips onto his. They stood like this for a few moments before they were rudely interrupted by Madame Pomfrey who reminded them where they were. I'm sorry, Chrome said with a bow to hide her blush. Don't be, I'm not, Suna said with an absent smile, making Chrome blush, but she was smiling happily. Madame Pomfrey opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again and finally closed it. He turned around and went into her office mumbling, kids. The next morning, Suna and Chrome left the hospital wing holding hands. This attracted the attention of everyone who saw them, the girls' gig. Gling and the boys giving Suna envious glares. When they reached the Gryffindor table, they saw most of students smiling like it was something they expected. The Vongola however had some rather amusing reactions. Ryohei chalked with his food and Yamamoto had to pat him on his back, but did it so forcefully that the boxer's face went into his bowl of cereal. Gokudera spit his juice across the table. And right into Squalo's face and the swordsman just continued to stare at the couple, Mammon gave Hibari what seemed to be the wager for a bet. On the other hand, Xanxus and Mukuro gave high five to Reborn, all three of them grinning. It's about time this happened. Reborn grinned. What do you mean? Suna asked as he and Chrome blushed. We've been trying to hook you up since you got back from Italy. Mukuro said. Wah, Gokudera asked staring at them. You should have noticed when we had you two living together. Mukuro said. Or when I sent you that second order of pizza. Reborn said making Chrome, Suna. Gokudera and Yamamoto dropped their forks. You were the one who put that in the pizza? Suna asked with a slight blush. Yep, that was me. By the way, sorry for giving you trouble, Hibari, the Hyman said. Don't worry, I enjoy interrogatories. Hibari grinned evilly. What did he put in the pizza? Harry asked and made the four teenagers blush. Sorry, we can't tell you. Yamamoto said while looking away. Ow, come on, spill it. Fred and George said in one voice. It's a drug we shouldn't talk about around minors. Suna said bright red. What drug? Hermione asked curious herself. Oh, just an aphrodisiac. Reborn said and sipped his coffee. On the other hand, everyone who was drinking nearby spit their juice or milk. What teacher in the entire world would put, Fred stopped embarrassed for a second, that in his student's pizza? Right here, Reborn answered as he continued to drink his coffee. Most of the students stared at him in disbelief and the Vongola cited. Some things never changed. If I wouldn't already know, I would ask why this person hasn't been arrested yet. Suna said in a discouraged voice. Why? Harry asked. Most policemen are mortal. Suna answered with a sigh. I finally made some development in the pairing. For those who don't understand how Suna protected the two, then he was the one that fired the ex-burner, I assure you. That the accident will be explained in more detail in the next chapter. Meanwhile, please give me some pairing ideas for the Yule Ball. And, like of people on this site say, reviews fuel my imagination. Lol. Chapter 12. Chapter 12. The Genius with the Green Pacifier. There have been 2 days since Suna got out of the hospital, but the Vongola had yet to resume their training. The sun was rather simple. The device that collected the sky flames had overloaded and blown up because of Xanxus and Suna, overwhelming energy waves. Dumbledore had offered to cast the Reparo spell to fix the problem. But it proved impossible due to the level of damage. Not even he could fix something at molecular level. But this accident had been predicted by Reborn. He announced that a Specialis T had been called to make the necessary adjustments to the Vongola X dome. He also muttered something about annoying acquaintances. This specialist was expected to arrive the next day. But there were other things to deal with at the moment, such as the article that had been published by Rita Skeeter about the tournament. She had, as expected, written most of it about Harry, putting him in a very uncomfortable position. Mainly because Cedric wasn't even mentioned. But the surprise came from what she had written about the Vongola. It contained information on each of all the abilities they had used since they arrived at Hogwarts. It even described the healing process Suna went through in the X-burner. It also had the opinions of several important people in the world of magic, among them being Cornelius Fudge, Lucius Malfoy and Ollivander. Honestly speaking, I had never heard of the Vongola school until Dumbledore suggested their participation in the tournament. Apparently, the school was founded around 500 years ago in Italy. But it seems that not just anyone can take their classes, thus most Italian wizards and witches attend Beauxbatons or Durmstrang that are in the vicinity of Italy. The leadership of the school is provided by the descendants of the first headmaster, or those that have the blood of Vongola, as they call it. Apparently, those of the bloodline inherit some seal abilities and are taught some secret techniques as well. They recruit the students from all over the world, their champion being Japanese, said Fudge. Vongola, I'm afraid I don't know too much about them. They must be either very secret or very low class. Malfoy said. Yes, it's true that I created some unique wands for the group that is now at Hogwarts. However, the material I used was provided by the Vongola, as well as the cores. While the cores are considered near mythical items, the material was unlike anything I ever seen. It was an unknown metal that was provided to me in the shape of 2 kinds of bullets. One golden and one silver. All I managed to learn about it was the property to conduct magical energy and its affinity for fire. Also, the unique energy the Vongola posse SS allows the wand to change its shape to a glove. Ollivander said, and a moving picture of Suna activating his magic tool followed. This article brought a huge wave of unwanted attention to the Vongola. Most students considered them to be some spoiled rich people while the Slytherins shared Malfoy's point of view. How dare they? Gokudera growled, pulling out some dynamite from somewhere. Calm down, Gokudera. We need to figure out how she spied on us, Reborn said. Say after you put your gun away, Mukuro grinned. Yeah, but still, Suna said with a smile as he turned to Harry, that woman got you cornered pretty good, huh? You didn't actually help either, you know. Harry snapped at him. Well, you could have taken his example, Chrome said. What about you guys? You were spied on in your own building, Hermione countered. Touché, Yamamoto admitted. What I don't understand is how she saw the healing technique Reborn used on the Vongola. I shrouded the whole room in darkness. She old have had to be right next to us to see anything at all. Mukuro said annoyed. Good thing she didn't hear anything from the day after we got here. Suna said with a shiver. Make sure you guys and Ron don't say anything on that subject anytime soon. Sure, Hermione can tell Ron. Harry said. Oh, come on. It's been almost 3 weeks since you became a champion. Can't you two make up already? Yamamoto said exasperated. He started it, Harry said stubbornly. You're beginning to sound like Haru, Gokudera muttered. Miss her already? Foo, Mukuro laughed. Who would miss that stupid woman? Gokudera said, but he was bright red. Okay, have it your way, Mr. Obvious, Ryohei grinned. Like you hadn't written a dozen letters to that girl Hannah. Gokudera countered. I was just asking about the boxing tournaments, the boxer defended with a blush. Yamamoto has been asking Kyoko about baseball as well. Oh, I guess I did, Yamamoto blushed. Right, I'm sure you did. Reborn grinned. Hibari, on the other hand, only received letters. Mukuro grinned. Kusakabe keeps me up to date with everything from Namimori. Hibari said without even raising his gaze. Kusakabe doesn't put pink ribbons on letters. Reborn said evilly. Those were from the foolish girl that took my place as head of discipline, Hibari explained with a disturbed voice. In other words, Kusakabe is begging you to return. Suna summarized with a sight. Bianchi has been telling me to kill Suna for almost 2 years and you don't see me doing it, Reborn said as he took a sip of coffee. What? He said, defensively when he saw the glares the Vongola were giving him. Could have fooled me when you almost drowned me, or when you pushed me off that cliff, Suna muttered. Which one? Reborn asked with an evil grin. At that, even Hibari burst in laughter. At any rate, that guy arrives tomorrow morning at 9. He needs a flame signal to get here. Since we have 3 mist users here, they will combine air flames to obtain a signal as strong as possible. Reborn instructed. Can't wait to see the modifications he made to the system. Gokudera grinned. He promised he won't use a human face in the design. Suna reminded him with a smile. But I thought he will model it after you, boss. Gokudera said disappointed. Oh well, I'll live with it. Suna smiled. That one modeled after Byakuran Gav. Me the creeps, Chrome said a little disturbed. Who's Byakuran? Fred asked as he took a seat at the table. Oh, just a guy that makes Voldemort look harmless, Mukuro grinned. A massive tremble surrounded the Vongola. You're kidding, right? Harry asked doubtfully. What did he do? Oh, he just killed about 1/4 of the population of Earth. Reborn said casually. When? Hermione asked horrified. 10 years into the future, Suna said as he got up and left the table with the others right behind him. I had to ask, Hermione said defensively. Let's not bring that topic up again, Harry said as they headed to class. The next day at 8:45 inside the Vongola X Dome were waiting the Vongola, the champions and their headmasters and Hermione. Why is this girl here? Karkaroff asked looking at Hermione. Because she was invited here. As were you, Suna said without even looking at him. You should be more respectful to your elders. Karkaroff said coldly. Sorry, some infant taught me. That respect must be earned. Suna exchanged a smile with Reborn. I'm pretty sure Suna will achieve that during the first task. Reborn grinned and Karkaroff raised a brow. It's time, Mammon said. And the 3 illusionists approached each other and raised their rings and pacifier. What are they doing? Madame Maxime asked. Signaling our location. Hogwarts is hidden, you know. Dumbledore smiled. So they're flying here? Fleur asked disappointed. No, they're coming straight from Italy. Mammon said as he wrapped his pacifier with his chain. But apparating in Hogwarts is impossible, Hermione said. They aren't apparating. No portkey either, Reborn said looking at the sky. Then what? Karkaroff asked annoyed, but his question was answered by a sudden mass of orange flames that appeared in the sky above them. Covered by the flames was a huge mechanical ring from which the flames actually came from. Then, just as some markings on the ring shined, a pillar of fire came down in the exact empty spot from which the signal was given. When the flames vanished a few moments later, they all saw small two figures standing there. Greetings, young Vongola, Verde smirked at Suna. It's been a while. Hey, Colonel said as he smacked Suna in the face. Where is Lal Milch? Gokudera asked. She's hunting down Gingerbread, or the magician's doll as he's called. Verde answered as he approached Reborn. Where's your equipment? The hitman asked. Should be here any moment now, Verde said, and a second pillar of fire brought a large amount of metal boxes and barrels. Just what is that? Harry asked after the introductions were made. That, Verde grinned, is the Vongola flame teleportation device, the third model, to be more precise, Reborn added. What happened to the first two? Dumbledore inquired. The heat was too much for the passengers. Suna mumbled as he rubbed his forearm. I told him that the destructive nature of the storm flames wouldn't go well with human flesh, Reborn cited. Yes, well, that's not why we're here for, Verde said as he walked towards one of the boxes and opened it with a touch of a button. We brought some new boxes to get the work done. Aster, Colonel said as the Vongola approached and saw the numerous cubes. What type of boxes? Suna asked as he picked up an orange box. Mole boxes for storm and mist, termite boxes for thunder and sun. Dolphin boxes for rain and snake boxes for all attributes. Verde explained. Great, snakes, Suna said looking disgusted. We'll need them to distribute. The dying will lead properly inside the walls and the floor. Oh, there's one more box especially for you, Vongola, Verde said as he opened a small reinforced box and pulled out an orange box. The plans for this were encrypted and hidden on the same disk that had the data for the Vongola boxes. Apparently, it was supposed to be a backup for emergency, but the Milfior got the only DNA sample before you. What is it? Suna asked as he took the box and saw no markings on it. Well, I honestly have no idea, Verde admitted with shame. All I know is that it's huge since it took a lot of material. The DNA didn't match anything in our databases though. Well, it has to be a creature that existed on Earth at one point in time. Gokudera said, let's see what it is. 10th. Fine, but let's do it outside since it's so big, Suna agreed, and the Vongola headed outside, leaving the others inside the dome. What was that all about, Timoteo? Dumbledore asked his friend, who decided to stay behind. Kids and their toys, the ninth smiled. You know how they are. Suddenly, a fierce roar was heard from above, and, as they looked up, they saw something incredible. A crystal-like orange Chinese dragon was staring down at them through the hole in the ceiling. Its whiskers and eyes were on fire. As most of the group began to back away, it turned around and disappeared. Toys, huh? More like weapons of mass destruction, Harry said. Quote, thank God he will only have his wand at his first task. Karkaroff wiped his sweat. I wouldn't be so relieved. He did all of the damage to this place with just his wand. Hermione said, and the foreigners stared at her with horror. Quite true. Were he to go all out, he could destroy Hogwarts in one blast, the ninth admitted. But I wouldn't worry. Tsunayoshi-kun is the biggest pacifist I know. Good to hear. Dumbledore smiled as the Vongola came back arguing. Put it under the best security the Vongola can offer. I am not opening that box again unless World War III starts. And don't make any more of them, Suna barked at Verde. Fine, now let's get this over with, the scientist cited. Here's what we'll do, Reborn began. The moles will dig here, here, here and here, he said, pointing on the plans. They need to create a circular network under the dome. Then, the termites will have to create this network of tubes in the walls. As the termites progress, the snakes will carry sealing liquid on their scales and rub it to the ice. This will be done by the sun snakes to prevent damage to the wood. After this is done, the other snakes will fill the network with the lead. And all this will do under the guidance of the rain dolphins, right? Yamamoto said as he took one of the blue boxes. Exactly. But first, Suna needs to fix that hole in the ceiling. Reborn grinned. Very well. Suna sighed and pulled out his storage box. Use your VR gloves, it's faster that way. Verde suggested and Suna replaced the box with his pair of wool gloves. What are those? Fleur asked, slightly amused. But she got her answer when the gloves turned black and silver and then were lit with orange flames. When the group looked at his face, they saw it was just like when he used his magic tool, crystal orange eyes and an orange flame on his forehead. Without another word, he lowered his hands and took flight. So that's how he landed on the first day, Harry said out loud. The foreign wizards stared with their mouths open. He uses the thrust of the flames like rockets. Hermione added. Well, he can't use them on the first task. Karkaroff said, a little relieved. He can't fly with just his wand. Actually, he can do just about everything he does with this pair, the ninth said, and Karkaroff went pale. He just has more experience with these. Suna had reached the hole and touched the edge. 0-point breakthrough. First edition, he called out and ice erupted from under his hands, quickly covering the hole. Then, he melted the edged areas with his flames, leaving the outer dome in a perfectly spherical shape. He then flew outside in mere seconds and did the same. After that, he landed and told the mole users to get to work. The four took their boxes and went outside. Soon after that, the wooden floor began to tremble as the giant moles dug the spherical hole underneath the roots of the floor. Tell me, Reborn, what are you digging for? Dumbledore asked. A large flame conversation and dispersion device. We'll convert the excess power to sun flames. It will purify the surroundings and increase the healing rate. And the grass will grow faster. The hitman answered. Oh, a little vegetation around the dome would look quite nice. Dumbledore smiled. As they finished their little chat, the trembling stopped and soon the Gokudera, Chrome, Muku, Ro and Mammon entered, all four of them exhausted. Are you three all right? Suna hurried to his friends. We're fine, Suna. Chrome smiled. Piece of cake, boss, Gokudera added. Aren't you gonna ask if I'm okay, boss? Mammon asked as he approached Xanxus. You not dead yet? Xanxus smirked. Ignoring them, Gokudera, Verde and Ryohei opened 3 termite boxes, Yamamoto and Squalo opened 2 dolphin boxes and Ryohei also opened 8 snake boxes all by himself. At their master's commands, the dolphins began communicating with the other box weapons, transmitting them the entire plan. The termites began carving tubes all over the walls, closely followed by the sun snakes after they've been soaked in the sealing liquid in the barrels. In less than 15 minutes, the entire process was done. Then, the other snakes filled the tubes with the lead, making sure there are no empty spaces. Now comes the easy part. Adding the Nexus core and activating it. Verde said. Where is it? Reborn asked. In the largest storage boxes I made so far, Verde said as he opened the remaining boxes, revealing a dozen large orange storage boxes. The main core is stored in 11 boxes. The secondary core is in this one. It will be placed on the pillar in the center of this room, Verde explained, and the 11 boxes were taken underground and the main core was assembled. Afterwards, Suna opened the last box and placed the gold and silver orb on the pillar, the 7 spikes entering the designated slots. Xanxus, 9th, 10th, please do the final touch, Verde said as he backed away like everyone else. The 3 sky users approached and placed their right hands on the orb, channeling their flames into it. The entire circuit in the walls began to glow in 7 colors. The crests of the 6 guardians were lit on the ice walls. As the 3 stepped back from the orb and it glowed and shot an orange pillar of matter to the ceiling. When it stopped, the Vongola crest stood burning fiercely. It all went smoothly. Hey, Colonel Lowe announced as he entered the dome carried by his hawk. Well, that will be all, Verde said as he stepped outside with Colonel Lowe and disappeared in a pillar of fire. After a few seconds, Suna made a horrified sound. That bastard left me the Uzora Ryu, he said, taking the box from behind the pillar. Oh well, can't call him back now. That device uses a hell lot of power. Gokudera shrugged. You should keep it, Suna. With your luck, you might need it at some point. Reborn grinned. Suna looked at the hitman for a few seconds and then asked out loud. I wonder if dragons can eat archibaldino. I don't know about all of us, but Reborn would give anyone an indigestion. Mammon grinned and disappeared before a bullet went through his head. Well, he can't bring it with him to the first task. So I don't see the problem. Karkaroff said. Reborn smirked and headed for the exit. At the door, he looked back and asked Karkaroff. Ever heard of the summoning charm? He said with a wide grin, leaving the others stunned. Chapter 13. Chapter 13. The first task. The day after the visit of the archibaldino, Harry received the long-awaited letter from his godfather Sirius Black. The Gryffindor common room at midnight part had him quite worried. Sirius wasn't known for his caution. Something wrong, Harry? Suna asked, snapping the wizard out of his daze. Nothing important, he answered a little too quickly. Signed Snuffles. Mind if I tag along? Dumbledore says your godfather needs to be informed of the situation. Reborn said as he handed Harry his letter. When did you? Harry gasped as he searched his pocket. Oh, right, I almost forget who I'm dealing with. He sighed. Fine, wait at the portrait and I'll let you in. Good, but before that, Hagrid wants you and Suna to go see him at 10. He said you should bring your cloak. The hitman said and left. As instructed, at 10 sharp Harry was knocking on Hagrid's door. Hagrid answered and told Harry to let Suna, who arrived earlier, under the invisibility cloak as well. Hagrid then met up with Madame Maxime, giving the two hidden champions the impression of a date. But the true intention of the keykeeper was revealed by the wild roars and howls that were heard from the direction they were heading to. What the hell are these? Harry asked loudly after Madame Maxime was far enough. This is what you'll need to beat to pass the first task. Hagrid answered. Chimeras. Suna said at the creatures in front of them. Yep, some of them are half-dragon. That one is a mix of a shadow-fang dragon with a sphinx. Hagrid pointed cheerfully towards creature that had its lower half like a lion and the upper half like a black spiked dragon with very large claws. The one on the left is a fire crab with a lightning lizard. He continued and pointed at a huge lizard whose scales exploded from time to time and had spikes filled with electricity all over its back. The one behind it is a mixture of poison bat and bloodhound. Was a huge red wolf with black eyes and a pair of dark green bat wings on his back. The next to it is a combination of ice shark, frost wyvern and water tiger. Was a blue tiger with a pair of brown skeletal wings, a white shark fin on its back, and finally a mixture of fell dragon and vampire, a dark dragon with a green aura and red eyes with vertical slits spit a black greenish flame at a rock, melting it completely. How the hell did they mix a dragon with a vampire? Harry asked as he stared at the beast horrified. They injected vampire blood in the dragon's body. And that blood was very hard to get. Hagrid answered. And we each have to beat one? Harry asked, looking at the other chimeras. Something like that, Hagrid said evasively. Now you should head back. As they made their way to the castle, they saw Karkaroff heading the opposite way. Why is he doing here? Harry asked suspicions. Same as us. The flames can be seen from afar at night, Suna said unconcerned. Weren't you supposed to be keeping an eye on him? Harry inquired. He's heading for 5 murderous beast, not knowing which one Crumb will face. What can he do? Point taken. But, speaking off Crumb, and with Madame Maxime probably telling Fleur, Harry began. You're telling Cedric first thing in the morning. If I do it, it would be too suspicious. Suna cut him off. Yeah. Anyway, any idea on how to beat those things? Harry asked hopefully. We're still opponents, remember? Suna smiled slightly. Oh, I forgot, Harry said discouraged. I'm just kidding. I won't leave you on your own. But I won't be able to help you directly. But some training will be okay. Suna assured him. Thanks. Wanna meet my godfather as well? Reborn is probably waiting. RRY suggested, and the two headed together for the Gryffindor common room. In front of the fat lady's portrait stood Reborn, taping the ground restlessly. You two are late. It's 11:30. Black will contact us soon. Reborn snapped at them as they passed through the secret door. Good to see you too. Suna rolled his eyes. For the next 30 minutes they told Reborn about the chimeras and discussed their options. Well, as far as I know, fell dragons are some of the most dangerous creatures out there. Reborn said thoughtfully. And if you add a vampire's stamina and regeneration to the mix. So we have to watch out for that one. Harry concluded. Maybe I can freeze it, Suna suggested. Dragons have magic-resistant scales. Reborn said. And fell fire can even burn regular fire. A voice was heard and, as they turned around, they saw a smiling in the fire. Sirius, Harry exclaimed and kneeled in front of the fireplace, followed by Suna. So you're the ones Dumbledore asked for protection? Sirius said, looking from Suna to Reborn and back at Suna. But what are you doing here? Dumbledore wants to keep you up to date, Reborn answered. Well, I'm all ears, Sirius grinned. So far, we've placed several surveillance devices at entrances and in the key locations throughout the school and surroundings. Also, we built a building of our own with a training area above and a shield enforcer underneath. It will purify the surroundings and double the power of the school's defense. Reborn enumerated. As for the one who put Harry, name in the goblet, we know for certain it wasn't a Gryffindor. Suna finished. Well, I'm almost sure it was Karkaroff. The guy is a former Death Eater. Sirius said. What? Harry asked. Yeah, he got out of prison by selling out several other Death Eaters. And they never had any evidence on any crimes he committed. The only thing Moody had on him was the dark mark, and even that disappeared pretty quickly. Sirius explained. Moody caught him. That explains how they know each other. Harry said. What do you know about Crouch and Bagman? Reborn asked. Well, all I know about Bagman is that he used to be a good Quidditch player. As for Crouch, I know him very well, Sirius said and his eyes darkened. He was the one who sent me to Azkaban without any trial. You're kidding, Harry said surprised. No, and he would have been Minister of Magic if a certain event hadn't occurred, Sirius said with a grim look. Certain event? Suna inquired. His own son was caught with a gang of Death Eaters and sent to Azkaban. The kid died after a year and his mother followed soon after. I saw the Dementors bury him. Sirius said disgusted. Was he really a Death Eater? Harry asked. No idea, but Crouch lost most of his political support after that. Sirius answered. Back to the most urgent problem. How do we deal with the Chimeras? Suna asked. Well, from what I know, their weak point would be their eyes. But you'll need them to stand still in order to have a clear shot. Sirius warned them. Oh, sure, make the huge monsters that want to kill you don't move. Why didn't think of that? Harry asked ironically. Would freezing them work? Reborn ignored Harry. I'm only sure about 4 of them. It's that vampire fell dragon I'm worried about. Sirius admitted. Vampires are naturally resistant to frost. It depends on the dragon's ability to assimilate that trait. And then there's this dragon's unique fire. He trailed off worried. What about it? Suna asked. Ever heard of fiend fire? Sirius asked. Yes, a type of magical fire that has a mind of its own. Very hard to manipulate and as destructive as basilisk venom. Reborn said calmly. You don't mean? Harry began horrified. No, this dragon's fire is called fell fire. It's a little less destructive than fiend fire and it doesn't have a mind of its own. But just like fiend fire, the wounds those black flames leave cannot be healed by any spell. Sirius explained. Cursed fire, I see. Well, if it comes down to it, we can remove the injured portions of the body and then I should heal them quite easily. Reborn said thoughtfully. If we live that long. Suna mumbled. Well, if you get it tired enough its resistance will decrease enough to freeze it, Sirius said. Hold on. I can't even freeze a bug, let alone a chimera. Harry interrupted. That's why I said you'll train with Suna, Reborn grinned. Okay. Leaving that scary thought aside for now, what spells should we shoot at them? Suna asked. Stunning, immobilizing or sleeping would all work, Sirius said. Immobilizing it is, Harry said. Then, all we need to focus on are reflexes and the summoning charm. Reborn grinned. The next day, Suna and Harry were waiting for Cedric outside the Transfiguration classroom. Are you sure you want me to be here? You can tell him on your own, you know. Suna said a little annoyed. With an entire class of 7th-year Hufflepuffs at his side. I'll need all the help I can get. Harry sighed. Here he comes, Suna announced. Soon enough, Cedric and his classmates approached with McGonagall in the lead. Potter, Shouldn't you be in class? She asked. I have divination. Harry trailed off. We need to have a quick word with Diggory, Professor, Suna said. Could you excuse him for a few minutes? We promise it won't take long. Take your time. We're only reviewing today, McGonagall said to everyone's surprise. So, what did you do that miracle for? Cedric asked when they were alone in the corridor. We have some good news and some bad news. Both confidential, Suna said. Give me the bad news first, Cedric sighed. We're fighting chimeras at the first task, Harry said bluntly. Okay. Are you sure? Cedric said a little disturbed. Quote, sure that you're the only one that didn't know. Harry said. So what's the good news? Cedric asked hopefully. Now you know, Suna said, and the other two sweat dropped. That was new, Harry said as H.E. and Suna were walking down the corridor. Reborn's attitude must be rubbing off to me. Suna sighed. The days before the task passed quickly as Harry was training his reflexes with the Vongola. Meanwhile, Hermione and Gokudera had been researching chimeras in the library. The weak spots of a chimera are the connection areas between different beings, Hermione said. So 4 of them are rather easy to weaken. The problem is that vampiric fell dragon. Gokudera continued. Since it was merged on the inside, normal rules don't apply. Reborn nodded. Well, they should be able to pass this task. On the day of the fist task, Harry and Suna had just finished breakfast when McGonagall and Reborn approached. Time to get moving. Your executioner awaits, Reborn grinned. Don't worry about the task. You just need to focus and you can do it, McGonagall said in a trembling voice. We have wizards ready to intervene if something goes wrong. The same thing was said by Bagman, who was the only adult in the tent the champions were brought to. Mr. Reborn personally called a disease expert, he added with a smile. Mr. Bagman, you wouldn't happen to know the name of this expert, would you? Suna asked fearfully. Dr. Shamal, Bagman answered. I knew it, Suna facepalmed. Mr. Bagman, don't bother sending any guys for him to treat. He only treats women. Wah, all the other occupants of the tent said. Well, I guess I'm the only one who will get targeted by him. Fleur said. Did I mention he's a perverted flirting moron? Suna asked weakly. Okay, nobody will get near him, Fleur said quickly. I believe it's time to announce the challenge. Dumbledore said as all 4 headmasters entered the tent with Crouch. Yes, to put things simply, you will face 5 chimeras as a group. Crouch said. As a group? Crumb asked. Yes, your goal is to incapacitate all of them. If you don't do that in the 1-hour time period, none of you will get the maximum score, Bagman said. Your scores will be in accordance to your performance, Crouch finished. We should be heading to the jury table. You have 10 minutes to come up with a strategy. Dumbledore said, and all 5 adults left. So, what's the plan? Cedric asked. Fleur, Crumb, did you bring your brooms to Hogwarts? Suna asked. Yes, but, Fleur began confused. Summoning charm, got it, Crumb nodded. But some of them can fly, Fleur let slip. Me and Harry will freeze them to the ground. Suna said. But, Crumb began. I'll deal with that vampiric fell dragon. Suna cut him off. So everyone knew, huh? Crumb said, slightly amused. Still, how do you intend to beat that thing? Fleur asked concerned. That dragon of yours. Crumb took a guess. No, it's too dangerous. But can summon another box from the castle. The one I usually use, Suna said. Let's take care of those chimeras. Cedric smiled as the whistle sounded. Welcome ladies and gentlemen to the first task of the Triwizard Tournament. Bagman announced loudly. Our 5 champions will face today 5 ferocious chimera. Initially, the organizers wanted 1-on-1 battles, but because of the danger we changed it to 5-on-5. Let the challenge begin. He finished as the champions came into view. Accio. All of champions called out. In less than 30 seconds 4 brooms and a pair of woolen mittens came flying to them. Tied to Harry's broom was a white glass sphere. From inside one of his gloves Suna took his Vongola box. As Fleur, Cedric, Harry and Crumb got on their brooms, Suna put on his X gloves. Immediately, the markings on the gloves changed. The golden and silver markings were covered with a blue crystal, in some areas the crystal formed curved blades. From the back of Suna's shoulders appeared black bat-like wings with G. golden and silver markings that formed whorls in the middle. I have just one word for this. Awesome, Harry said, and the other three nodded amazed. I'll need my hands free for casting, Suna explained. All right, let's do this, Harry said and rushed towards the 5 chimeras along with Suna. The chimeras were in the center of a large stadium, larger than the Quidditch field. In order to keep them from killing each other, a force field of some kind was covering them, making it impossible to even face one another, let alone get close. Dumbledore must be behind this. This way, the chimeras can't gang up on any of us, Suna thought. As they got close enough to the chimeras, he told Harry, you stay here, I'll be on the other side. Shortly, and, with a sudden flame thrust from his gloves, he was in position. At this point, Harry threw the orb in his left hand in the middle of the creatures. He then pointed his wand at it, but some of the chimeras got in the way and started to approach him. Cedric, Krum and Fleur spun into action and began distracting the chimeras, but they now had to dodge huge icicles from the skeletal wings of the blue tiger, electric spikes from the lizard's teeth, ale and poison needles from the wolf's bat wings. Reducto, Harry chanted, pointing his wand towards the white orb he threw earlier. What is this thing? A crystal ball, Harry asked, looking at the empty glass ball in Suna's hand with distrust. It's called Spell Storage Orb. It can hold up to 30 shots of a single spell. When shattered, those separate spells will be released as a single, powerful one that will affect the immediate vicinity, Suna explained. In other words, Suna and Chrome will fill I with the Glacio spell and you will have to do is destroy it. Make sure it's close enough to the chimeras. A huge shining white mist erupted from the orb, covering the chimeras that were attacking Fleur, Krum and Cedric up to their necks. When the mist dissipated, the 3 creatures were frozen stiff. But their heads were still mobile and continued to attack. On the other side of the arena, Suna was pawning the Shadow Fang Sphinx and the vampiric Fell Dragon. He was mainly focusing on the Fell Dragon. But he knew that the Shadow Fang needed to be weakened as well, in order to be frozen. When he finally managed to knock down the Fell Dragon, he took the opportunity. He aced his hands and called out, 0-point breakthrough, 1st edition custom. Quote, ice crystals erupted from the gloves, rushing towards the 2 semi-dragons and encasing them almost completely in ice. The only thing that wasn't covered in ice was the head Shadow Fang Sphinx, and it immediately became Harry's target. Suna got above the Fell Dragon and began charging his X-burner. When he was almost finished, the ice began to crack and the head of the dragon appeared partially covered in dark flames. Sorry, you're too late, Suna whispered. X-burner hyper explosion. He called out as a humongous stream of flame shot from his stretched hand straight down at his opponent. In mere moments, the ice on the chimera melted and the dragon's body was scourged. All that remained was a smoking corpse in a 20 feet deep crater. As he wiped the sweat on his forehead, Suna looked around and noticed everyone, even the remaining chimeras, staring at him in horror. You know you only have 10 minutes left, right? He said, and Fleur and Cedric took the opportunity of the chimeras being distracted and cast a stunning spell in their eyes, ending the battle. What a battle, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a round of applause for our champions, Bagman said and started applauding himself, immediately followed by everyone else, even Karkaroff. When the scores were given, Fleur got 41, Cedric got 42, Krum got 45. Harry got 46 and Suna got 49. Of course, the one that took a point as penalty for who knows what was Karkaroff. But Suna was just happy nobody got hurt and that he didn't need to use his Vongola box. When they got back to the tent, all 5 of them were pretty pleased with themselves. They were soon joined by the jury, Reborn and Shamal. Yo, kid, long time no see, Shamal greeted Suna. Yeah, hi, Suna said with a slight smile. How's Chrome-chan? Shamal asked with a perverted grin. Apparently it hasn't been long enough, Suna sighed and some of the others chuckled. Maybe I should tell Arya that you're staying in Japan, he added. No, thank you very much, Shamal said in a rather panicked voice. Coward, Reborn smirked. Maybe, but I kind of like the whirl of the living, Shamal responded rather stiff. Tell that to Mukuro, Suna smiled. Already did. You do not want to know what happened after that. Shamal trembled. Anyway, Dumbledore interrupted with a smile. Congratulations for passing the fist task. The second task will place on the 24th of February. These medallions will help you figure out what you will have to do, he added, pulling out 5 identical medallions. They were shaped as bolts of lightning and were made of some silver and crimson crystal. 5 thin holes went through them to the other side. After they took the medallions, everyone left. Shamal followed Suna, Harry and Reborn to their friends. While Ron apologized to Harry and congratulated him, Chrome was hugging Suna. "Thank God you're okay," she whispered, relieved. Quote, "You should have told me those things were so big." "Yeah, Suna, that one even broke the ice," Yamamoto added. "Well, it wasn't that bad, considering he didn't need to open his box," Shamal said before putting his hand on Chrome's hip. In mere moments, Chrome was pointing her trident at the pervert, keeping him at bay. As they headed for the castle, the group ran across Rita Skeeter. "Harry, Suna, how about a few words?" she asked, with her green quill in one hand and a parchment in the other. "Shamal, why don't you give her an interview about your area of expertise? The one that brought you to Japan." Reborn grinned and the reporter and medical hitman accepted with enthusiasm. "Those two deserve each other." Gokudera grinned when they were far enough and the other agreed with evil grins of their own. Sorry for the wait. I started a new crossover story. There's more than one world of magic, Nagima fairy tale crossover, and it's eating away some of my already limited free time. I hope you liked the first task. Please review and try to guess what's the second task, or at least where it would take place. Here's a hint. Elements. Chapter 14. Chapter 14, The Yule Ball. A few days had passed since the first task. Things had settled down and Suna was enjoying the peace and relaxation, not. Suna felt like he was in hell. The reason was quite simple. Reborn thought he had gone soft. Since his chimera had actually broken through his 0-point breakthrough first edition custom. Reborn knew very well that it only happened because of the fell fire, but he couldn't decline an excuse to train Suna to the limit. He wanted the technique perfected to the point that it could absorb all the energy that hits the ice and use it to strengthen the structure. In other words, he anted the ice to get more resistant as the enemy struggled. So, the first thing that had to be done was to increase Suna's flame capacity. And the only way to do that, in Reborn's vision, was to have Xanxus shoot the boss to be until he got tired. The other shooter was Gokudera, but Suna preferred to stick to Xanxus. Storm flames were too destructive for his taste. Before he knew it, it was the middle of December and a certain announcement made him fall on his face. Good thing he had just taken flight. "What ball?" he asked as he managed to get up. "The Yule Ball. It's a tradition of the tournament," Dumbledore said with a slight grin. "So if we want to come we'll need a date?" Yamamoto asked. "Not necessarily. However," the headmaster turned to Suna, "the champions and their partners will be the first ones to dance." Dance? Me? You're joking, right?" Suna stared at him. "That's exactly what I told McGonagall before getting snapped at," Harry said as he entered the dome. "But I don't know how to dance." Suna mumbled, embarrassed. "Join the club. I tried that too." Harry rolled his eyes. "No good, huh?" Suna said. "I asked the house heads to give lessons," Dumbledore said, and the two boys sighed. "Well, I need to get back to the office," he added, and left, followed by Harry. "Well, I think we increased your flame capacity enough." Reborn ended the silence. "Really?" Suna asked with hope. "Yep, but starting now you'll be taking dancing lessons." He grinned. "From you? No offense, but..." Suna started, staring down at the hitman. "I'll be the one teaching you, Suna," a voice was heard as the door opened. "Bianchi," Suna said, surprised. "We're here too, Suna-san," Haru said happily as she, Kyoko and Hana entered after Bianchi. "What are you all doing here?" Gokudera asked as Haru approached him. "Making sure you guys don't go out with someone else, Mr. Macho," Haru said, clinging to his arm. "Same here, darling," Hana said to a blushing Ryohei. But the blush disappeared when Kyoko kissed Yamamoto on the cheek. The two boys stared at each other for a few seconds, then Ryohei nodded and the tension disappeared. "Well," Suna approached Chrome, "will you go to the ball with me?" As a reply, Chrome gave him a long kiss on the lips. "I'll take that as a yes." Suna smiled and noticed the eyes of the new arrivals on them. What? Somehow, I knew this was going to happen, Haru said with a slight smile. What gave it away? The month they lived together. Reborn grinned. No, it was that second pizza, Haru said, looking straight at Reborn. Moving on, the Hitman said as Leon took the initiative to turn into a gun. Suna, I don't know how to dance either. Chrome said embarrassed. Don't worry Chrome, I'll be glad to teach you. Mukuro said as he appeared at her side. Now then, let's begin slowly by teaching these two the art of tango, Bianchi grinned as she approached Suna. Foo, Mukuro laughed as the two beginners' sweat dropped. As the days passed, Suna and Chrome got used to dancing. But while Bianchi was amazed that Suna didn't step on her feet even once, it's good to have hyper-intuition, Mukuro was thankful that he could make his body partially immaterial. It took a week for Chrome to get her act together. If you took off that eye patch, you would learn quicker, he said the day that marked the beginning of the winter holidays. I'll take it off soon, she promised. During breakfast the next day, the Vongola saw Ron almost hiding under the table from Fleur. What's wrong with you? Gokudera asked, leaning towards him. Ron murmured something in response. Gokudera blinked a few times. Say that again, he asked. He asked Fleur out. Hermione smirked. Cut me some slack, will ya? I didn't know she was part Vila. Ron defended. My little brother could have told you that, and he's a first-year Muggle born, Colin Creevy said as he passed by. At this point, Ron hit the table with his forehead. Humiliated by a first year. Well, at least it can't get worse than this, Ron muttered. I don't know, Filch's cat seemed pretty bright to me, Gokudera grinned and Ron groaned, causing the others to burst into laughter. So, leaving Ron's intellectual capacity, or rather the lack of it, aside, who are you guys going to the ball with? Reborn asked Harry, and Hermione. Well, I didn't invite anyone yet, Harry said a little down. You have until supper, Reborn said. Wah, but Christmas is 3 days away. Harry panicked. You will have a dance partner before supper or you will die trying. Reborn said pointing a gun at him. Roger, Harry muttered. How about you, Hermione? Chrome asked. Well, it's a secret. You'll see at the ball, she said with a blush and left quickly, followed by Harry and Ron. Mukuro, keep an eye on her during the ball, Reborn said with a concerned voice. Why? The illusionist asked intrigued. Fangirls are evil, Reborn said solemnly. Amin, Suna, Xanxus, Squallow, Gokudera, Ryohei and Yamamoto said in one voice. Kyoko, Haru and Hana asked confused and looked at Chrome for answers. Chrome giggled and pointed towards the other side of the Great Hall. There, Hibari was running with a harassed look on his face. Behind him there were a dozen female Quidditch players. The three newcomers' sweat dropped and dismissed the madness, shaking their heads. They were better off not asking. Speaking of fangirls and dance partners, Suna turned to the Varia members. Who are you going to the ball with? No one. If either of us will want to dance, we'll invite someone then, Squallow said casually. As for me, I never liked dancing, Mammon added. Just then, McGonagall arrived next to Suna. Mr. Sawada, Mr. Mukuro, your headmaster has requested your presence in Dumbledore's office. He mentioned something about decorations. The professor said. We'll be there soon, Suna said as he and Mukuro got up and left. As they reached the headmaster's office, they could hear arguing from inside. Aren't you giving the Vongola a little too much freedom? Karkaroff said annoyed. Why would you say that? Dumbledore said in his normal voice, though Suna felt the hidden irony. First you let them raise an entire building on the grounds using some unknown magic and now you want them to use the same magic to decorate the Great Hall for the Yule Ball. Karkaroff almost yelled in annoyance. Then why don't you take care of the decorations yourself, Professor Karkaroff? Suna asked as he entered the room. Inside there were all the judges and other champions. Also, there was a man standing next to Dumbledore that Suna identified as Cornelius Fudge. Me? Karkaroff asked shocked. Why yes. If you complain about someone's work, one would think that you can do better. And since you're very familiar with ice, considering where your school is, I would personally recommend you for the job. Mukuro said with an evil grin. Well, I could do it, but I'm still against her. So I'll leave the decision to Dumbledore. I just didn't want you to overwork yourself. Karkaroff stammered. Of course, Suna said sarcastically, making most of the occupants of the room to cough in order to hide their amusement. At any rate, is there any particular design you want the ice to have? Suna asked Dumbledore. Yes, there are certain shapes that I want in particular. Dumbledore replied, handing him a folder. This is quite impressive, Suna mused. It would take us about 6 to finish. 6 hours. Why don't you take a whole week while you're at it? Karkaroff laughed. Take a look you before you complain. Suna snapped at him and gave him the folder. Karkaroff looked at the plans and paled. I see, he mumbled. I'll do this tonight after dinner is over. Suna said. Dumbledore, these flowers are different than the ones in the dome. Madame Maxime observed as she looked over the plans. Yes, Mukuro used lotus in the dome for practical reasons. However, it would be out of place at a Christmas party. Dumbledore smiled. Not to mention what it symbolizes, Suna muttered. And what would that be? Fudge asked curious. The lotus is the flower of hell, Mukuro grinned. I never heard that before, Crumb said surprised. That's because you've never seen hell, Mukuro said casually, bringing a short silence to the room. Anyway, I'm counting on you for the decorations, Dumbledore said. Won't the ice melt before the party? Bagman asked concerned. With the upgrades I've been doing after the first task, it should be immune even to fiend fire. Suna said confidently. Oh, regarding the second task, I wanted to ask if you've made any progress, Fudge said, looking around at the champions who shook their heads. Well, after discussing with the jury, we've decided to give you a hint about those medallions. When you activate them, it would be wise to have some empty parchment nearby. Now, I still have something to discuss with the jury, so you are excused. So, that medallion is some sort of magic quill, Cedric said as they all walked down the stairs. I think you mean pen, Fleur said in a seductive voice. Ah, yeah, Cedric said, a little embarrassed. Give it up, Fleur, he already has a date, Suna said, amused. Oh, it's alright, so do I, Fleur smiled cheerfully. I was just having a little fun. So, who are you coming with? Suna asked. Roger Davies, since you guys are retaken, Fleur said, a little disappointed. I'm with Chrome, how about you guys? Suna asked. Cho Chong, the Ravenclaw's seeker, Cedric smiled. Okay, it a secret until the party, Crumb said vaguely. Well, considering she's 3 years younger, I can kinda understand why. Mukuro grinned. How did you? Crumb stared at him. Reborn. Anyway, make sure you don't forget rule no. 1 inch, Suna said. Good point, I'll keep an eye on her. Crumb trembled slightly. Rule number 1, Cedric asked confused. Fangirls are evil, Suna said simply, and the others grinned. How about you, Harry? Cedric asked. Not yet, he sighed. And because of that he has a grand total of 10 hours left to live, Mukuro grinned. Reborn, Harry said, and the others understood immediately. The hitman was already well known in the entire school. But the worst part is that he'll use the dying will bullet, Suna continued. What does that do? Harry asked fearfully. Rip all our clothes except your underwear, and in this case it will make you invite the first girl you come across. Suna said. And yes, he did that to me too, first time we met. Kyoko still blushes when Somio Nay mentions that, he added dryly, and Mukuro smirked. Oh man, why me? Harry muttered. Foo. I'll give you some advice. Hope you don't mind asking out someone from a different house, Mukuro snickered. This is one of the few things you can trust him on. Go for it, Suna approved. Harry nodded and followed Mukuro. Are you sure this is a good idea? Cedric asked with doubt. No, but considering the alternative, it's still better, Suna admitted. And for some reason Mukuro is a good judge of character when it comes to girls, he added before they split up. Next time he saw Harry, he found out that his partner was Loony Lovegood. Well, she was definitely unique. On the evening of the ball, everyone was gathered outside the Great Hall. As Harry looked around while he waited for Luna, he saw most of the people he knew with their partners. Ron was right beside him with Lavender Brown. He was wearing a maroon dress robe while Lavender had a red dress. Near the door were Fleur and Cedric with their partners, Roger and Cho. Both girls were wearing silver dresses, but Fleur's was made of satin. Harry felt a little jealous as he watched Cho. He initially wanted to invite her, but gave up after that discussion with the other champions. The jealousy, however, disappeared the moment he saw Luna approaching him. She was wearing a silver dress as well that matched her eyes and some silver blue gloves, all made of silk. As she seemed to float towards him, Harry blushed slightly, but because of his green robe it was more obvious than usually. "Hi, sorry I'm late," Luna said with a blush of her own. "No problem," he said, not being able to believe that the weird occult-loving third year he met when he was with Mukuro in the library over a month ago could be so cute. Soon after that, Krum arrived with a pretty girl in a blue dress that turned out to be Hermione, much to Ron's irritation. "I wonder where the Vongola are," Harry wondered out loud. Before anyone could answer, odd sounds came from the direction of the stairs. The Vongola had arrived, and boy did they make an entrance. In the lead were Suna and Krum. Suna was wearing a black tuxedo with an orange shirt and black tie. Krum was wearing a vaporous indigo dress that left her back open and a pair of matching gloves. What attracted everyone's attention were their accessories. Suna was wearing a blah CK cape made of a mysterious material that seemed to absorb light. Krum had finally discarded her eye patch, revealing normal-looking eye under the mysterious glasses that were floating in front of her eyes. An eerie glow was slightly visible on them, giving her somehow a rather seductive appearance that might have rivaled Fleur's. They were wearing their Vongola boxes in Cambrio forma. Following G Suite were the other guardians with their dates. The boys were wearing tuxedos like Suna, with shirts that matched their elements in color. The girls were also wearing silk dresses, though the design and color differed from Krum. Haru's was bright red, Kyoko's was golden and Hana's was blue. Behind the four couples were Xanxus, Squalo, Hibari, Mukuro and Mammon. And behind them was one final couple. Bianchi in a dark red dress was next to a man in a black tux with a dark yellow shirt and sporting a fedora. It was Reborn and he was making more victims among the girls with his smile than he could with a machine gun. He had retaken his former appearance for the occasion, using a drug recently developed by Verde. Together, the Vongola were giving a vibe that Harry understood for the furs. Tea time. They were mafia and nobody messed with them. When the doors finally opened, everyone except the champions and their partners entered the Great Hall. After the students sat down, the 5 pairs entered as well and were welcomed with applause. They went past the many round tables that had replaced the house and staff tables and took a bow towards the jury, at whose table they had seats reserved. However, instead of Crouch stood a red-haired young man that Harry identified as Percy Weasley. He immediately motioned Harry to sit next to him and Suna decided to sit next to Harry. "I got promoted," Percy said like he had become the supreme ruler of the universe. "I'm now Mr. Crouch, personal assistant and here to represent him." "Good to see you too," Harry said ironically and Percy blushed a little in embarrassment. "This is my partner Luna Lovegood." Luna gave a small bow, "and these are Sawada Tsunayoshi, the Vongola champion, and his partner Chrome Dokuro." Suna shook Percy's hand and Chrome nodded. "So, how come Mr. Crouch didn't come himself?" Harry asked. "He's not feeling very well, and with everything that has happened since the Quidditch World Cup, who can blame him? No, the man deserves a quiet holiday. Good thing he had someone trustworthy to take his place," Percy said, making Harry and Suna roll their eyes, causing Chrome and Luna to giggle. After that, they ate and soon it was time to dance. The champions and their partners gathered in the middle of the Great Hall as a band took the stage and the dance began. Much to Harry's embarrassment, the first song was a slow one that required the partners to stay very close to each other. Luna on the other hand gave him a calming look and he got over it. Before the song was at the middle, several other pairs aimed to dance. Dumbledore with McGonagall, Neville and Ginny, Yamamoto with Kyoko, Ryohei and Hana, and Haru dragged Gokudera. After a few more dances, Harry, the Vongola and Krum decided to take a break. Akin sat at a table as far away from Percy as possible and were soon joined by the other Vongola and Ron. "Suna, I really owe you for giving Verde the data on this drug," Reborn said with a grin. "Yeah, good work Suna," Bianchi added. "No problem. But I'm kind of surprised that you didn't use it as well, Mammon, Suna said. I'll wait for the permanent one. Mammon replied. Well, with a little luck, you might not wait long. I intend to do that again a week from now, Suna said. Never thought you'll do it willingly. Hibari said, a little surprised. Well, considering how restricted he was the first time, who can blame him? Reborn sighed. Tsunayoshi-kun, I believe it's almost time. Dumbledore said as he approached them. Time for what? Harry asked. You didn't think that it took us 6 hours to do just this, did you? Mukuro asked ironically as he waved towards the few ice decorations around them. The real decorations are right here, Suna said as he revealed 3 white storage boxes. He gave one to Mukuro and one to Chrome. They then opened them at the same time. A torrent of crystal flowers escaped Mukuro's box and covered every table and the walls. From Chrome's bow, came out dozens of enchanted ice swans and phoenix that flew across the hall. As for Suna's, a white beam of light erupted from it and went straight for the enchanted ceiling. A few seconds after that, it began to snow. But somehow, it disappeared before it touched any surface. Awesome, Ron said, and the others just nodded in agreement. The rest of the ball went perfectly for the group, Althaug. Ron had an argument with Hermione regarding Crumb. Hope you liked this chapter. Please review. Notice. For those who have the impression that I abandoned this story, let me tell you that you're wrong. I gave a sketch for the next few chapters, but I will wait for a few more weeks to see how the Vongola boxes in ring form work and if I can include it in the story. The new Vongola rings as well. Up for adoption. As much as it pains me to admit it, I can no longer write this story. The reasons are as follows. My free time is very short now that I'm in college and I really need to focus on my studies. There have been so many changes regarding the rings and boxes since I have started writing the story that I would have to rewrite it if I want to use any of the recent Reborn manga. I honestly don't like the way the manga has been going since the last part of the Future arc, and I would hate to put all that confusing stuff with the Shimon in my story. So, since I know that quite a few readers liked this story, I have decided to put the 4th school as Vongola up for adoption. Anyone interested, please send me a message and I'll get back to you regarding this story.